American Comics, opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 251 Unknown New Species. Levi's heard him say this. Oh my god, just be content. Some people don't get a seat for the rest of their lives. Thor was also helpless. If I give you my position now, I think you are quite suitable. Levi's could try this position if he wanted to, but he didn't want to. If you let your father know, he will definitely scold you. Who to scold? If it's Thor, you really have to scold him. When the two were talking, Zeus walked to the side of the two of them and just heard the words behind. Levi smiled and greeted him raw. Thor saw his father take a sip of the wine in his hand. He doesn't seem to talk to his father very much now, and Zeus definitely sees his performance. Zeus didn't want to talk to Thor either, and turned to look at Levi's. I heard Thor say 607 this time. Thank you for your generous help. Levi's shook his head. This matter isn't for you either, because I also have something I want to protect. Levi's words reached Zeus' heart and nodded. This is indeed the case, but we can't be less grateful to you. Do you have any wishes? As long as we can do it, we can all consider it. Zeus' promises are still effective, but Levi's currently has nothing to wish for. Can I save this promise now? I don't have what I need right now. Zeus laughed when he heard this. Definitely yes, no matter when you come to me to cash, definitely Thor can also. 35. When the party was over, Levi's was ready to leave. Thor, I'm leaving now, bye. Thor didn't expect time to pass so fast, although he was a little reluctant, but Thor also knew that he couldn't keep it. Goodbye, I will find you later when I have time. Levi's nodded and disappeared in a blink of an eye. When he said he was leaving, he was really leaving, and it was not sloppy at all. Thor was a little helpless at the empty place in the blink of an eye. Levi's was walking really fast. He still had some questions he wanted to ask, but he left without asking the master. When Levi's reappears, it will be his own home, and Miss Saka at home will immediately perceive Levi's figure. Master, are you back? During the time you were away, Yuriko came to you. Levi's laughed when he heard this. The kid was a bit clingy, but also very well behaved. Levi's quite likes this kid. Mr. Scott came to see you once, but you weren't there. 55. It's really been a long time since I went here. Levi's thought about it, and went to Cyclops. Cyclops was still working at this time, and the sound of Levi's pushing the door and entering caught his attention. Are you back? How's Thor over there? Are you okay? He's alright. I didn't come here to talk about this. I heard that Miss Saka said you were looking for me. Did something happen to you? Cyclops pushed the text in front of him to Levi's. Look at this one and you'll know what happened. 39. Levi's took the file in front of him, opened it and browsed it quickly. A brand new, unknown, new invasive species appeared in that plant area, and not just this one. Levi's thought he had solved it all before, but he didn't expect this thing to be very cunning. The 3 caves of the Sly Rabbit are really very apt to describe it. Where else did the rest show up? Did you investigate the source? 35. The place where it appeared is still under investigation, and it has not been investigated yet. 35. The place is too big, and this thing is still found in remote places, which is a bit difficult to investigate. It's easy to deal with if you find the source. You should investigate it carefully, find the source and tell me. 35. Cyclops nodded when he heard this. I know about this, and I will inform you when the time comes. Other than that, there was no police matter. Levi's watched Cyclops process the documents, one by one. You don't have to do some things yourself, right? Just leave it to the following. Cyclops moved his body while chatting with Levi's. I can feel relieved after reading some things. Do you think anyone can be as big as you? Levi's is not big-hearted, but in the face of a sudden emergency situation, he feels that he has the ability to solve it perfectly. Cyclops saw that Levi's hadn't left. Are you going to stay and deal with me? When Levi's heard this, he immediately disappeared in front of Cyclops. Cyclops saw the empty place, and withdrew his eyes with a smile. Still like a child, I was called to work and I was run away. Levi's came back from Cyclops and saw Clarice working in the kitchen. When Clarice saw Levi's back, she came and gave him a hug. Honey, I haven't seen you in a long time. He really didn't have time to accompany Clarice during this time, and it seemed that Clarice didn't remember the dishes she cooked in the kitchen until the two got close for a while. Pushing Levi's away in front of him. Crap, I prepared dinner. Levi's watched her enter the kitchen recklessly and shook his head helplessly. He followed in Clarice's footsteps, and the two lived in the kitchen together. Although the kitchen is large enough, the space is still much smaller after Levi's enters. Clarice was scrambling to deal with the contents of the pot, but fortunately nothing happened. She was relieved to see Levi's standing behind Clarice. Let me see what delicious food you have prepared. 35. Levi's swept the ingredients on the table. Looks like I have a good meal tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. 55. Clarice was handling the ingredients in her hands, and smiled when she heard this sentence. Don't be stunned, let's help together. Levi's washed his hands and stood behind Clarice. Seeing him like this, Clarice was rude and shoved the 4.1 thing around her into Levi's hands. I'll leave this to you, will you? Just ask me if you don't. Levi's looked at the shrimp in his hand and nodded. There is definitely no problem. Clarice was relieved to hear him say that, and went back to work on other things. Levi's saw her turn back and looked at the shrimp in his hand. Instead of doing it myself, I use my own ability to deal with it. I have to say that I can solve my hands very well and deal with it much faster. Levi's dealt with the shrimp in his hand at once. Lies, I've dealt with it. Carrot didn't expect Laheng to deal with it so quickly, and looked back. What I saw was the clean shrimp. Okay, thank you dear. If you have nothing to do, just go out and wait. 99. Chapter 252 Tony's Invitation. Clarice didn't look back after saying this, and Levi's walked out of the kitchen. Miss Saka, put on some soothing piano. Miss Saka, who heard the order, handled it very quickly, and played music according to Levi's request. All Levi's was left with was waiting for Clarice to come out, but luckily she moved quickly. After a while, the ingredients were processed. Vice, it's time to eat. Levi's walked to the restaurant and sat down. The dishes were already served. Is today a special day? It's so rich. Clarice served Levi's food and urged him to eat quickly. It's not a special day, it's just that I want to make it for you to eat. The two chatted and laughed together, and Levi's opened a bottle of red wine. The two of them were a little drunk at the end, and in such an ambiguous and romantic atmosphere, both of them were a little over the top. Levi's, who had a good night, woke up in a very good mood, and when he woke up, he saw Clarice sleeping beside him. Gently kissed her forehead. 22 then got up to Washington. While washing, Miss Saka reminded Levi's, Master, Tony has sent you a video invitation. Connect. The call was connected and Tony's face appeared on the screen. Tony saw Levi's and said, Hey man, long time no see. It didn't take long. Did you call for something? Levi's asked Tony as he brushed his teeth, and Tony spread his hands. I just want to invite you to take a look at my new invention, which I think is a very good invention. 35. As an inventor, Tony can sometimes create very unexpected, but very useful things. Levi's thought for a moment. I'll come and take a look later. Tony was satisfied when he heard Levi's answer in the affirmative. Man, I'm here waiting for you to come. After he finished speaking, he hung up the phone. Levi stood in front of the mirror wiping his face, and suddenly felt someone hug him. Lies, are you awake? Is my voice too loud? Clarice shook her head. No, did I wake up by myself? You didn't wake me up. Levi's put down the handkerchief in his hand and turned to embrace Clarice. The two pressed their foreheads against each other. Hey, baby, you look very good today too. 35. Levi's undisguised compliment made Clarice blushed at this time and broke free from Levi's hand. Okay, I'm going to get ready to brush my teeth. You go out quickly. Levi smiled and walked out of the toilet when he saw him, leaving Clarice alone in the toilet. Baby, I'm going to find Tony, and I'll be back later. Clarice nodded when she heard this. Okay, I know about this, go ahead. 35. Levi's got dressed and disappeared into the room, reappearing at Tony's house. It was Pepper who opened the door and saw Levi's sideways to let him in. Tony, the person you want to meet has arrived. 35. Hearing the movement, Thor walked out of the room where he was working, and when he saw Levi's, he stretched out his oil-soaked hand and wanted to hug him. Levi's saw that his hand was immediately blocked. Hey, if you have something to say, what are you doing with your hands and feet? Pepper also saw the oil in Tony's hand and took out a handkerchief from his pocket. Tony, what are you doing? Why come out without washing your hands? Caught a current. Tony shrugged his shoulders. Sorry, I was more excited to hear his name. Tony took him to the computer where he was working, and clicked on the mecha model Levi's had seen before. Levi's advice was very helpful, and Tony knew he was on the right track. Now Tony's Stark Industries group includes many high-precision industries, even if it is changing now. Forget it, I don't know about this, so I won't get involved in this matter, he answered readily. Yes, I happen to have this plan. What? Do you want to invest in shares? 5. That's it. Do you see any difference? When it was done, Tony walked out of the room with Levi's, and the two of them talked as they walked. Vice, you are my muse. The mecha that Iron Man himself wore. Levi's glanced at it and looked away from it. Not many people know about Tony, although it is not known where Levi's got the news. Hey, you're definitely different, and I'd love to have you on board. When Tony heard this, he shook his head. No, things are definitely not as simple as you think, I added. When the two of them were like this, Levi's had a reasonable doubt that if they didn't interrupt, they didn't know when they would stop. The company Tony founded has no idea how many people want to work with him, and he definitely has no shortage of investment. Levi scanned it with keen eyes, comparing it with what he had seen before. But you are not the one who is short of money. You will be short of this money? It was just a little strange to mention this to Levi's, and asked a question instead. Tony heard this as if he had found another new direction, and kept working on the computer with his hands. It's also an existence that can't be underestimated. Levi's doesn't think Tony will be short of this amount of money. Oh, I almost forgot. I'll show you. 99. There is a slight difference. You are refurbishing your mecha. 35. Levi's still can't understand. It's not like an invention. It's just a renovation. Tony took Levi's toward his workplace, pushed open the door, and the first thing Levi's saw was a mesh parked in the middle. Very devoted, Levi's watched him operate, and when it was done, Tony 607 stopped the action in his hands. Tony reached out and patted Levi's on the shoulder, confidence in his tone. This piece of Levi's didn't know very well, so he touched his chin and thought about it. What did you call me here to see? How is my idea great? I think my mecha will definitely be more perfect after I make it. 9. Thor heard Levi's ask and remembered the purpose of today. Levi's just came here, and the two showed their affection. Tony explained all his ideas and original intentions to Liu Heng, and looked at Levi's after speaking. Levi's still refused Tony's invitation, and now he has the X-Gene potion in his hand, and he is not short of money for the time being. Tony, I heard you want to start a new company. From the practical aspect of combat, he raised his own question. Although Levi's does not understand mecha, he understands combat. Chapter 253. Thor comes to the door. Tony was a little disappointed to see him refuse, but just for a moment. Hey, okay, man, let's go out to dinner. 35. The two had been busy for a long time, but they didn't notice the passage of time at all, and Tony didn't say anything. Levi's thought it was too early, and now that it was so late, he wanted to go back. Sorry, I won't eat here anymore. There are still people waiting for me at home. When Tony heard this sentence, he showed a clear expression and made fun of Levi's. Is that so? Then I won't disturb the alone time of the two of you. See you another day then. Levi's ignored his jokes and disappeared in place after saying goodbye. Tony was used to Liu Heng's way of leaving, so he turned to look for little Pepper. My dear, did you prepare something delicious today? Pepper was standing in the kitchen with her apron on, hearing Tony's voice and looking back. Only saw Tony alone. Is gone. Yes. There is someone waiting for him in his family. Isn't it good for us to live a two-person world? When little Pepper heard what he said, a smile appeared on his face. Have you dealt with everything? Almost there. Vice is a genius and gave me a lot of useful advice. Tony was full of praise when talking about Levi's, and Pepper gave him a look and then fiddled with what was in his hand. Stop talking about it. Come and help me. Tony didn't know anything about these things and tried to get his hands on it. Hey, this thing is really difficult. Levi's went back to his house and saw the figure busy in the kitchen. Lies, I'm back. 55. Clarice heard a figure stick her head out of the kitchen, her face stained with flour she had gotten from somewhere. Are you back? Wait a minute for me. After speaking, Clarice re-entered the kitchen, and Levi's offered to help and was pushed out. After trying it, Levi's had to give up and sat down in the living room helplessly. After waiting for a while, Clarice came out of the kitchen and brought Levi's to the table. Look, these are all prepared for you, Tilda. Everything on the table is what Levi's likes to eat, and it is very rich. Levi's was very surprised to see this scene. Is today a special day? Clarice winked at Levi's. Guess what? There's a penalty for guessing wrong. Levi's has a very good memory, and after going through it in his mind, he already has the answer in his heart. Sorry baby, I just remembered that today is your birthday. Levi's didn't even remember his own birthday some time ago, and he doesn't remember Clarice's birthday now. You're amazing. Just remembered. Clarice didn't blame Levi's, and pulled Levi's to sit at the table. Hurry up and eat, or it won't be delicious when it gets cold. Levi's nodded and sat down at the table. Just as it was about to start, Miss Saka made a sound. Master, someone is waiting outside the door. Would you let him in? 99. Levi's looked at the sky outside one day. Who could it be at this late hour? 35. Miss Saka didn't talk nonsense, and directly showed Levi's the surveillance outside the door. Clarice was also a little curious, glanced at the screen, and recognized it at a glance. Thor? 35. Levi's remembered seeing Thor only yesterday. Why did he come looking for him today? Miss Saka, let him in. Miss Saka took the order and let Thor come in, and Levi's walked over to Thor. Why are you here? Did something happen? Thor shook his head. I just wanted to ask you about Jane's current situation. Levi's didn't understand what he heard and took him to the restaurant. Clarice had seen Thor, saw him come in and called Thor raw. Levi's called raw Thor to sit down, and Thor sat opposite Levi's. What about you coming to Asgard? Is anyone handling it now? I just came out for a while. Nothing will happen, and my father is still there. Thor didn't think this was a serious matter, and said it very lightly. Since you said it all, that's fine. 99. Seeing that he couldn't persuade Thor, Levi's said nothing more. Vice, do you know how Jane is doing recently? Levi's instructions to this question can only be spread out. I have no contact with Jane, how can I know her current situation? Thor was silent for a while after hearing Levi's words. I went to her today, she didn't want to see me, so did Daisy, neither of them responded to me. Things have become like this, you might as well just give up. Levi's doesn't know what to say. Clarice agrees with Levi's very much. I also think Vice is right. You should just give up on this matter. Thor seemed to be thinking and just in a daze, and the three of them didn't speak at this time. Levi's picked up his bowl and chopsticks. Lissai, eat. The dishes will be cold later. Hearing his words, Clarice shifted her attention from Thor to the dish in front of her. Reaching out to Levi's dish with chopsticks, Vice, try this. This is my first time trying. Levi's opened her mouth and the next dish she brought, It tastes very good, you can eat it yourself. The sweet atmosphere of the two made Thor even more uncomfortable, and he was still sad. What happened to the two? I want to eat, too. Thor doesn't think about Jane anymore, and he's hungry for the things on the table. The bowls and chopsticks are in the kitchen, just go and get them. Levi's held down Clarice, who was going to get the tableware, and told Thor. Thor had no objection to this, and went to the kitchen to find the tableware. The three finished their meal, Wang Zhao, in a fairly relaxed atmosphere, and sat down from the dining room to the living room. Vice, I figured it out. What you said makes sense. I'll give up. After a meal, you don't have to know how Thor figured it out, and stop chasing Jane. Levi's had no other emotions about his words. Just figure it out for yourself, and it's up to the two of you to put it bluntly. Thor didn't want to talk about this topic anymore, and turned to talk about other things. I see that there seem to be more mutants here. It seems that your medicine is well promoted. Levi's didn't pay attention to this matter, and heard Thor's curiosity. Is it really a lot more? He's not dealing with the pharmacy thing, so he doesn't know much about it. 39. Lissai, why don't we go out for a walk to get rid of food? Clarice had no objection and readily agreed, and Levi's looked at Thor. Thor, how about you? Are you going outside for a walk? Chapter 254. A perfect opportunity. Definitely can. Levi's saw that the other two had no opinion, and the three were set off together. It has been a long time since he took such a slow walk, and now he walks very easily. There are a lot of people at the academy who know Levi's and talk to him about Raw when they see them. Levi's also nodded with a faint smile. Even so, he still attracted a lot of people. He could clearly feel that there were many more people around him, and all of them looked at him with bright eyes. Clarice smiled and held Levi's hand. Levi's froze for a moment, and then responded quickly, shaking it back with his backhand. It wasn't that Thor ate the dog food alone, and the people around also felt the sweet atmosphere of the two. Levi's strolled around the academy, and there were indeed a lot of people. Levi's also saw a few good seedlings among these people. Levi's is very satisfied to see the development of the academy so well. Only when a steady stream of fresh blood flows into the academy will the academy develop better. Cyclops, who was exercising on the playground, saw Levi's and trotted to him. Hey, are you out for a walk? Levi's nodded. Mr. Costa, good evening. 610. The threesome became 4, and Cyclops joined the team. Clarice, it seems I haven't seen you in a long time. 99. Cyclops saw Clarice for the first time in this period of time, and Clarice smiled. I've been in the academy all the time. It's the teacher. Are you too busy? This made Cyclops laugh. Really, maybe I'm too busy these days. During this time, he has indeed dealt with a lot of things. Teacher, I saw a lot of new students coming into the school today, and they all look pretty good. Cyclops had a bigger smile when he heard Levi's talk about this watch. Indeed, the school has recently selected a group of very good seedlings. If they are cultivated well, it will be a small help for us. 5. Cyclops also felt that the quality of the freshmen who came in during this period was very good, and they were all good kids. Schools will get better and better, and so will these kids. Levi's looked at the people playing on the playground not far away. Obviously he was one of these people not long ago. Now that he has become a teacher who can teach these people, the change, is really fast. You don't want an old-fashioned tone, and you're not much older than them. Cyclops heard Levi's sigh and smacked him on the shoulder with a smile. He knew that Cyclops didn't try hard, but he wanted to tease Cyclops in his heart. Mr. Costa, you are so powerful. How could Cyclops not see that Levi's was doing it on purpose, laughing and slapping him on the back again? Hey, you're acting too fake. Levi's retracted his expression. Hey, didn't I tell you a joke? The people around saw Levi's like this, and he became closer in their eyes. Originally thought he was aloof, did not expect such approachable. That mysterious creature, how is the investigation? Any clues? Levi's got up and asked Cyclops about the unknown. Cyclops has some reports in hand, but not very comprehensive. He told Levi's the information he had in his hand. I found that the main body is in the Lu Palace, and now some countries have appeared, and they can deal with it reluctantly. 99. Levi's touched his chin. He hadn't heard of it before. Where did it come from? Could it be a monster that merged with other worlds, so he hadn't heard of it? This possibility is very high, and Levi's does not know how many people have been incorporated here. Yes, there is a class that has been trained almost, but is no actual combat experience. Then why are you here? I'm walking with them. During this period of time, Yuriko was much healthier than the skinny, small, and morbid appearance before, and now she is willing to communicate with people. Gee, then I'll go too. Levi's nodded to lead you. Yes, I'll be the lead teacher, and I'll take you along. 55. No, is Brother Vice going too? As soon as Levi's said it, Cyclops knew what he was going to do. It's so slow, teacher, just say it directly. 9. Mr. Costa, what about now? Can you rest assured now? That's just right. Send me the treatment materials later, and in 2 days, I will take these people to the battlefield to practice. 99. Recently, an unknown species has appeared, and its attitude towards humans is not so friendly. Now Vice proposes to take you out for a try. Are you willing to go? Said that cow arrived. Just when Levi's was thinking, he heard the voice of Yuriko. By the way, there is another child. Does Yuriko want to go with her? But I'm afraid she doesn't want to go out now. It's okay, if Yuriko doesn't want to go, she can refuse. 99. Then he leaned over to Levi's side. Why is Brother Y here? Levi's didn't expect that Yuriko's progress was so fast, and now she can make friends by herself. Now Cyclops doesn't have to worry about it. This thing is a good training opportunity. Are there any students who are training about the same? I feel a little pain in my heart. You two are the same. After listening to Yuriko, she began to think, and she looked at Levi's after thinking for a while. Yuriko, who ran over, saw Cyclops and the others, smiled and called raw to them one by one. Brother Vice. Without any hesitation, Yuriko agreed immediately. Cyclops saw how quickly his favorite student changed his mind. Seeing Cyclops' serious look, Yuriko thought that something serious had happened, and she also became serious. Okay, I'll send you all the information when I get back. Yuriko blinked her eyes and looked at Cyclops curiously, not knowing what puzzles the two were playing. Yuriko has changed a lot during this time, and Cyclops can see it, but she is still afraid that she will not be able to control her ability after going out. Yuriko, the teacher has something to tell you. 35. Having him look at Cyclops is very reassuring. Cyclops can handle most things. I came here to find my new friend. She was very interesting, and I came to play with her. 99. Cyclops' concerns were justified, and Levi's was thinking about it too. These words reminded Levi's of Yuriko. Yuriko's ability is top-notch, but emotionally. Levi's nodded. Then trouble Mr. Costa. Seeing her like this, Levi's thought she didn't want to leave the campus, but Yuriko shook her head. Chapter 255. Departure is imminent. Mr. Costa, what's the matter with you? Yuriko was a little overwhelmed when she saw Cyclops' heartache, and looked at Levi's for help. Mr. Costa, stop pretending, you scared the kid. Cyclops became serious in the next second, retracting his heartache. Okay, now that everything has been decided, then I will send you the arranged list tomorrow. Yuriko was stunned by the change in Cyclops' expression, and looked at the two of them in a daze. After Cyclops left, did he still stare blankly at the back of Cyclops leaving? Levi's was a little funny to see her like this. Everyone has gone away. What are you still doing? When Yuriko heard Levi's voice, she retracted her gaze and turned to him. It's nothing, it's just that I don't seem to have seen Teacher Costa like this before. In Yuriko's impression, Cyclops has always been reliable and steady. Levi's touched Yuriko's head. You are still young, you will know it when you grow up. You should better prepare for the training when it comes. There is not enough time left for you. Levi's words reminded Yuriko of serious business. Yes, then goodbye Brother Vice. After speaking, Yuriko hurried away, and Levi's, who saw this scene, smiled helplessly at Clarice. It's almost time, let's go back to, how about you, Thor? He definitely didn't forget Thor who was standing by, and Thor knew it was really late. I also went back, and when I come next time, I will invite you to drink. 35. Levi's nodded when he heard this. Then I'll just wait. I'll slaughter you when you come next time. Oh, then I'm really looking forward to it. I'll let you drink enough when the time comes. Thor laughed and patted Levi's on the shoulder. I'm leaving. After he finished speaking, he looked at the sky and charged his feet, and Thor disappeared directly from the spot. Levi's was not surprised that they left like this. He himself was a go-getter. Clarice, let's go back too. Clarice nodded and took Levi's hand. I see that Yuriko has changed a lot. I have seen her before, and it is completely different from now. When Levi's heard her talk about Yuriko, he nodded in agreement. It's true, she's changed a lot. She was introverted before. Look at it this way, Vice, you can be a good father. Levi's stopped his footsteps when he heard this, and looked at Clarice who was standing beside him. Liz, can I understand that you want a child? Levi's words made Clarice blushed and opened her mouth to explain, but she didn't know where to start. I'm a little early for us to talk about this now. Clarice blushed and forced an explanation, and Levi's didn't make it too funny when she saw her. When the time was right, he stopped teasing Clarice, and he really wasn't ready for a new life. I know, we are indeed still young, we will take this matter slowly. The next day Cyclops sent all the collected data to Levi's. This is the data I have collected during this period of time, take a look. Levi's browsed the information received. This monster is called Omega. What's your name? Cyclops nodded. It's exactly what we named it. What's wrong? No problem. It's a little curious why you gave it such a name. The name reminds Levi's of a monster from a movie he's seen before, where the two don't seem to be related. This name was chosen by the group of researchers, and you may have to ask them for the reason. Cyclops didn't know why he called him like that, but he spread his hands helplessly. Levi's didn't bother much about this matter, and he didn't want to ask any questions after hearing this. Are all your picks ready? Are we going now? Oh, these guys are so excited to hear that you are leading the team. they are already ready. Cyclops cut the picture to the group of people who were ready to follow Levi's out of the station, and Levi saw Yuriko standing in the front at a glance. Yuriko did not stand with them, but stood far away alone. Ask for flowers. Levi's glanced at the group of people. Mr. Costa, they are all very good boys. That's for sure. Then you go now, and I wish you all the best of luck. 35. Cyclops is very, very confident in Levi's words, which are all good seeds that he picked out himself. There are also a few 4th-level mutants in it, and Cyclops is also very optimistic about this group. Levi's didn't stop when he heard this, and set off from the same place to the place where they gathered. His appearance caused a lot of commotion, and both eyes turned to Levi's. But their team still maintained very well, and there was no confusion because of Lu Heng. Seeing such a disciplined scene, Levi's said he was very comfortable. Zero, satisfied, nodded and swept them round. Everyone who is here today should know what it is because of something. Since we are ready, let's go now. Levi's words were not loud, but their forehead was very strong. Everyone who heard his words was very serious and answered Levi's in unison. Got it. We're all set. Levi's nodded lightly and led the way. Go to the place punctuated by the documents sent by Cyclops, and the brilliant fires attract a lot of people on the ground. Watching them go out is full of envy, especially the children, who have fantasies about this group of people in the sky. Their speed is very fast, and they will soon reach their destination today. By the time they were all there, Levi's had been waiting for a long time against the door panel. Are you all ready? Go in when you're ready. There was a door behind Levi's, and I didn't know what this place was for before. There is no movement inside now, and the silence is a little scary. However, these students did not show fear on their faces, and their eyes were full of excitement. Report, teacher, we are all ready. Levi's was very satisfied when he heard this, nodded, and pushed the door behind him and let them go in. And he followed behind these people, so that Levi's could deal with the mountain in time. Chapter 256. Yuriko's dislike. These students filed in, and although they were excited, they had not lost their minds, and they carefully checked the house in pairs. Yuriko was in a group with a very tall boy, and the two carefully pushed open the door in front of them. This room should have been a cold storage before, but it has not been used for a long time, and the things in it have begun to rot and deteriorate. There was a foul smell, and the two who entered the door all covered their noses. The atmosphere was a little serious, and the tall boy on the side wanted to find some topics to chat with Yuriko. Hey man, what do you think might be in here? Yuriko frowned and didn't answer, only felt that he was a little noisy. Boys are also interesting people. Knowing that Yuriko doesn't want to talk now, his expression was a little embarrassed, and he touched his nose angrily. 610. Continuing their unfinished exploration, the two carefully shuttled between the cargo racks in the freezer, always paying attention to the surrounding situation. They also received information from Cyclops before they came and knew what they were going to face. The two searched around and found nothing in it, so they were ready to exit. The boy suddenly felt that his arm was touched by something, and when he didn't know what it was, he felt Yuriko beside him push him. With so much strength, he directly hit the wall beside him. Pushed by you inexplicably, when the boy was about to stand up and accuse Yuriko, a huge amount of crack was punched by a mechanical arm in the place where he just stood. This power looks very terrifying. If it falls on him, although it will not cause serious damage, it will also be very painful. Only now did the boy realize that he had misunderstood Yuriko, and was just about to apologize to Yuriko. Before, he also thought that Yuriko was thin and small, and she must be the one who was holding her back. Now rescued by Yuriko, he felt his face burning hot. Yuriko didn't have time to pay attention to that stupid big man's mind, and her whole body was ready for battle. In the middle of the roar of this mechanical monster, the small figure rushed out like a cannonball, and ability also condensed in his palm. The target is the weak spot on the monster, the red spot like the eye. Yuriko's movements were very fast, and the boy only saw a white figure passing by. Then there is the mechanical monster that has been unresponsive on the ground, and Yuriko is like an elegant kitten after being handled. He gracefully jumped down from the mechanical monster and landed firmly on the ground. At this time, Yuriko's thin body was filled with another very strange and violent beauty that was incompatible with her. The boy looked a little straight, but he didn't expect a violent lie under such a petite and cute face as Yuriko. Yuriko still ignored the boy who was in a daze, and forcefully dragged huge amounts of monsters up on the ground. He walked towards the door and frowned when he saw that the boy had not responded. TSK, what are you still doing? Let's go. At this time, the boy seemed to have regained his sanity and replied in a chaotic manner. I'll be right here. The boy picked up his headset from the ground and rushed towards Yuriko. Yuriko saw that he followed and then dragged the things in her hand out, and Levi's was standing in the open space outside. He seems to be very lazy, but he actually pays attention to the movements of none of the students, so he can take a better shot when they encounter a crisis. But at least you didn't hold back. You still did a very good job. God, it looks really incredible. Alas, Yuriko, wait for me too. Don't be so fast. Jenny thought that Yuriko was going to say something to him, and looked forward to it. The boy was a little embarrassed to hear this compliment, and scratched his head. He subconsciously pressed this matter on the boy. After all, Yuriko looked really too thin. Who knew that Yuriko spit out just one word, stupid. 55. Seeing this scene, Lu Heng shook his head helplessly. The little girl Yuriko was really interesting. At this time, Yuriko's partner also came out, and everyone saw that the boy was tall. Although it was very humiliating to say this, the boy still told the truth. Just saw Yuriko dragging the giant mechanical monster out of the room, and there were also students around. Levi's knew that Yuriko was nervous and called out Yuriko's name. Yuriko stopped when she heard this, and turned to look at Jenny. How did this skinny little girl do it? It doesn't look like something she can do. Levi's was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and then responded randomly and quickly. At this moment, it really looks like a very ordinary and lovely girl, definitely ignoring the huge and hideous monster in her hands. Reported to the teacher. This matter I didn't contribute. But boys don't care about this. After all, powerful people are more or less eccentric. Jenny didn't think that one day when he was disliked by children. He didn't know what to say when he looked at Yuriko's back. Yuriko's expression changed when she heard Levi's voice, and her eyes were shining at Levi's. Everyone looked at Yuriko and the others, and Yuriko's face became more serious. Quickly entering the next search point, the boy looked at it blankly, but did not expect that Yuriko's execution was so strong. He can also accept this point. Yuriko-san, my name is Jenny. So we two know each other? Levi's said this was mostly a joke, and everyone who heard it covered their mouths and laughed twice. Okay, you continue to investigate. Don't be stunned. Yuriko's attitude towards strangers is not very good, and people with discerning eyes can treat them differently. The boy quickly followed in Yuriko's footsteps, and the two entered a 4.1 room again. The eyes looked up and down on Yuriko, and the more everyone looked at it, the more serious Yuriko's face became. Yuriko, have all the monsters in the room been dealt with? Levi's heard the sound and turned his eyes to the source of the sound. This scene attracted not only one person. Everyone was very suspicious of Yuriko's small arms and legs. After Levi's said this, Yuriko was the first to move, and Yuriko threw the monster in her hand on the spot. Levi's nodded when he heard this. Yes, you did a very good job with this. You both are very good. 39. Teacher, the monsters in the freezer have been cleaned up, and the inside is now very safe. Chapter 257. Interesting combination. Mysterious ball. Jenny didn't pay attention to Yuriko's cold face and followed her. You slow down. How can this kind of thing make girls come? It should be me walking ahead. Yuriko ignored his words and walked in front alone. Levi stood outside watching the back of the two leaving, with a smile on his face. It's an interesting combination. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner, and the monsters in this place were quickly cleared out. But Levi didn't see the leader hiding here, and the special agent students all stood in the open space after dealing with it. Between them and Levi's is a group of mechanical monsters that have been scrapped, and Levi's checks and finds that there really is no target for them this time. He frowned and looked around, and there was nothing unusual. Did you get the news in advance and slip away? Or did their message go wrong? Did you see anything strange during the inspection? Or is there another 10 cache? No, we didn't see anything else. Everyone shook their heads when they heard this, and they were very careful in the process of checking. Finding nothing strange, Levi's had a thoughtful look on his face when he heard this. The whole team. Things are a little strange here, and Levi's decided to go back and ask Cyclops what was going on. They also quickly got the team in order as Levi's said, and Levi's was about to take them away. I don't know where the mechanical monster rushed out, and the target was them. Definitely rushed out not only this one, but also countless mechanical monsters followed by this one. Standing densely together, the scalp of people looks numb. Levi's also reacted very quickly, blocking the rushing mechanical monsters. Get ready to fight. Levi's woke up all the students who were stunned, and Jenny was one of them, reacting and planning to show off his skills. But someone around him moved faster than himself, deftly rushing out like a cat. Hey, Yuriko. It's too dangerous for you to do this. Jenny knew whose figure it was at a glance and quickly stopped Yuriko. But Yuriko doesn't take care of Jenny at all, and the small figure flexibly shuttles through mechanical monsters. Levi didn't have much effort, and the monsters that hedged to his side were easily solved. Then observe how others behave in battle, and help out if there is danger. Levi's noticed that among these people, the javelin was the most outstanding one was Yuriko. Looking at the petite body, but the action of handling it is very fast and neat, basically killing with one blow. And Yuriko's partner did not do badly. Levi nodded with satisfaction. Seeing that the monster around him was about to hit the student's face, he helped him up from the ground. Any mistake in battle can kill you. What were you just hesitating about? The student who was pulled up from the ground by Levi's heard this and immediately replied to Levi's, report teacher, I was wrong, and I will never do it again. Levi's didn't say anything when he saw him like this, and then followed them to deal with the source of constantly monsters outside. Lu Heng glanced at it, and I don't know how many people rushed up from outside. He didn't have any pressure, he just didn't know how much time this group of students could hold. Levi's thought it was a good opportunity to experiment, to test where their bottom line was. At this time, he paddled openly, shuttling through this group of people, and generally did not shoot unless necessary. Once he lied to Yuriko's side and saw that she was dealing with it with a serious face. "Yuriko, how do you feel?" "Mr. Vice, I'm still very good." Yuriko also knows that you can't call names indiscriminately outside, and her answer is very decent now. Levi's nodded, then instantly disappeared in place and appeared next to the next person who was about to hold on. "Are you all okay?" "Teacher Vice, we are almost unable to hold on." The people who spoke moved a lot slower, and it was a little difficult to deal with the monster in front of them. Levi didn't say anything, and took action to clean up all the monsters around him. It was only a minute for Levi to deal with it, and the pressure on the students was much less. Now there is a thick layer of scrapped machinery on the ground around them, but there is a steady stream of monsters rushing up from behind. Levi's looked at the direction the monster appeared, emerging from the bottom of a mountain. He squinted his eyes for a long time, and the monsters consciously covered up where they came out. But Levi's was not fooled by them, and with his superior eyesight, analyzed their whereabouts. "The mountain in the southwest direction. Pay attention to the formation. Let's go over and take a look." After Levi's words, the students around him also reacted, narrowing the safety circle a little, and Levi's walked in the front. The rest of the people were responsible for dealing with the monsters rushing around, and Levi started with him quickly getting to the position determined by Levi's. And the truth is similar to what Levi thought. Most of the monsters come from here. They stood in the air and looked at the huge amounts of hole on the ground. 587 Teacher, what should we do now? Levi's found a bomb for blasting from himself, hit it, and threw it at the hole at his feet. The moment of the explosion killed all the defenseless monsters on the ground, and the rest were very reasonable. Without Levi's hand, someone has already taken care of the rest. But their actions also angered the other monsters, screaming at them. "I know if it's a good place to look at it. You guys wait for me here, I'll go in and take a look." The mutant students nodded. They really couldn't handle it. "Don't worry, teacher, we will deal with it here." Levi's glanced at them and rushed to the hole below. The rest is nothing to this group of students, not to mention that there are 5th-level mutants like Yuriko in it. They should be able to handle the split, and Levi's was relieved. The cave was very deep, and I don't know where it leads. There were many forks in the road, and Levi's chose only one way to go down. There are a lot of traces of monster activity on this road, and Levi's follows this trail. I don't know how long I walked, but Levi's saw a very empty place. In the middle huge amounts of spheres. There are 4 monsters patrolling by S.H.I.E.L.D. Chapter 258 Safe Return. When Levi's saw this scene, he knew that he had found his target, and the monster around this huge ball was somewhat strong. But in Levi's eyes, it's nothing, it's just that the ball in the middle doesn't know what it is. It looked a little weird, and Levi's watched without moving for a while. This round ball is only quietly rotating, and strange lights light up on its body from time to time. After watching Levi for a while, Levi has nothing to gain, so he is not ready to waste any more time. No matter what she is, one force will drop 10 times, and when the time comes, it will be flexible. Levi's figure rushed out ghostly, and directly destroyed all these big things when neither monster reacted. Levi's looked at the ball after processing it, and he had seen it in another warehouse before, and it didn't seem to be so big. Which one looks much smaller? Levi's was about to burn this thing with fire. There was an extra voice in his head. "I know you, I saw you in my memory before the split." Levi raised his eyebrows. "Split? So these are not your essence?" "You can think so, but I don't think you can find me for a while." Levi saw that this thing was not aggressive, and it was estimated that the means would be to control only those mechanical monsters. "Can't find it? As long as you are still on this planet, you can't find a word." Levi scoffed at her words. Didn't care, and circled the ball. Thinking this was a good experimental goal, consider that Levi's dialed Cyclops. "Hey Vice, how's the situation going over there?" "Teacher, everything is going well, just trouble you to find a few researchers to help me see this thing behind me." Saying that, Levi's pointed the camera at the big ball behind him, and Cyclops was also a little curious to see this thing for the first time. My eyes couldn't wait to stick to my phone, and I looked at it carefully. "What is this thing?" "It looks like it's delicious, Tilda. It's the omega you study. You find researchers to take a look." Cyclops nodded when he heard this. "I know, I'll go call now." Cyclops was still very fast, and quickly found the group. The researchers were very interested in what was behind Lu Heng, and they looked at it when they saw it. "Oh my god, Mr. Vice, can you take this thing apart and we'll see?" When Levi heard this, he walked to the edge of the ball, his hand as if he were pinching a piece of tofu. I easily squeezed into the round ball that looked smooth and untouched, and tore the ball apart with force, revealing the contents inside. What Levi saw across the phone was what seemed to be sticky and wriggling flesh inside. Some researchers began to vomit when they saw this scene, and it was simply disgusting in this thing. Levi's was also stunned for a moment, a little confused about how machinery was combined with flesh and blood. And Yuanqiu, who had been calm before, said, "You don't seem to be very acceptable, but it's okay, you will adapt." In anticipation, they heard voices ringing from behind them. "Teacher Coaster, It's a pity that you didn't go to the scene, otherwise you would have seen Yuriko look like when she was fighting. It's cool. I'm fine. This group of students is still quite good to bring. It's just that round ball thing. Have you arranged someone to deal with it now? They are really good ceilings, and their abilities are very practical and of little impact. Although they were tired on their faces, they couldn't hide their excitement, and today's fight was really cool. She really interprets the aesthetics of violence to the extreme when she fights, and everyone looks at her fighting as if she is watching a beautiful performance. When will Teacher Vice come out? I'm almost unable to hold on. Cyclops spoke to the students behind Levi's and told them all to go back to rest. What are you looking at? We'll leave when we're done. Levi's didn't get on his body, but the face looked disgusting. Cyclops agrees. She's a good boy. What about the others? How? But now no one has time to admire this. They are watching the hole where Levi's disappears. Things arranged by Cyclops. Levi is still more trusting, and his mind has shifted from this matter. Yuriko, that kid herself is also very hard. Otherwise I'm afraid that one person is useless. In the next second, the thing in front of him exploded, and the entire empty ground was full of flesh and blood, looking very disgusting. Levi's came back and reduced the pressure a lot for them, and they were able to breathe a sigh of relief. Although these few are not as highly rated as lily seeds, they are all good ceilings. Cyclops nodded. Good. Goodbye Teacher Coaster. After saying that, they disbanded in place, and returned to their rooms with 2 or 3. This ball was very happy when he said this, as if he was accomplishing something important. Yuriko gritted her teeth and knocked down the monsters rushing up one after another beside her, and she was also a little exhausted. Yuriko's ability they are all looking at in their eyes, and no one dares to underestimate such a thin girl now. And when the ball inside exploded, the monster that Yuriko dealt with outside seemed to be dead. Well, you guys are tired today and go back to rest. It's all good ceilings. What's Jenny's name? Not bad. There are a few that are doing well. Levi's pupils shook, and the sense of crisis made him quickly prop up a barrier in front of him. Back at the academy, Cyclops were already waiting for them, and it was a relief to see them come back safely. A smile appeared on Cyclops' face. This is a student you personally taught. How can you be embarrassed? After everyone was gone, Cyclops' gaze turned to Levi's. Are you okay, Vice? After hearing Levi's voice, the students felt like a shot in the arm. After the surrounding monsters were cleaned up, Levi's quickly rushed back to the academy with the students. The arms that fell beside him trembled unconsciously. But even so, the Gold was the fiercest of their group. Don't worry, I've already arranged it all. Get Zhao. A frantic attack was launched against this mutant student, and the long battle made it impossible for some to hold on. Cyclops had already arranged for someone to go when the ball exploded, and it should be on the way now. Chapter 259 Divided Monsters. The two stood in place and chatted for a while, and Cyclops received a message from the people who had gone to Levi's to clear the battlefield. Teacher, we have already adjusted here, and the relevant information should be sent to you later. Cyclops nodded when he heard this. Okay, you guys give me the results as soon as possible. After hanging up the video, Cyclops looked at Levi's. Now to my office? This matter still needs to be looked at. Levi's had no opinion and nodded in agreement. After the two waited for a while, the report came over there. Cyclops sent Levi's a copy, and the two checked it out first. It's not just one person detected in this flesh and blood. What is this monster trying to do? Cyclops was a little puzzled when he saw this, while Levi looked at the information in his hand and pondered. Recalling the first time he saw this monster, he didn't look at what was inside, he burned it directly. Levi's told Cyclops about the first time he encountered the monster, and he began to meditate after listening to it. He can speak directly in your head. Will he be able to control ordinary people? Cyclops' mind spun very fast, and it came to mind at once. If the thing is really the 613, this thing is too dangerous, and ordinary people have no way to do it. After all, no one has a strong mental will and ability like Levi's. When I was fighting, I didn't see any impact on his entanglement of students, and I don't know if it's not mutant. Levi told Cyclops what he had seen in the battle, and he listened and pondered. There are still a few points left. You take the researchers with you to see what the situation is. Levi nodded. There was no difference between leading a group of researchers and leading a group of students in Lu Heng's eyes. Go now or when? Levi's didn't notice any tiredness anyway, and there was nothing to do with him now. Look at it, you're waiting for me here. Cyclops also knew that the sooner this was dealt with, the better, and went aside to call someone. Levi's didn't know what they were talking about, and after waiting for half an hour, Nick Fury came with someone. Cyclops was very happy to see him and stepped forward to give him a big hug. Hey, man, when you come, I know you are the most reliable. Nick Fury pushed away from the Cyclops who rushed towards him. Let's get down to business now, don't delay time. Okay, look at this. Cyclops sent the information to Nick. Fury also sent a copy. Levi sat on the side and didn't speak. Anyway, there was Cyclops to deal with. He didn't have to worry about it. Nick Fury finished reading the information in his hand. This time we S.H.I.E.L.D. will cooperate with you, so let's start now. After saying that, he informed the remaining few people, and the first to arrive was Tony, wearing a red armor, and flew around the outside of the building. Then I came in and sorted out my clothes. Hey, Vice, we meet again. Levi's looked at them with his chin and heard someone greet him in response. Hey, good afternoon. Arriving one after another with a Hulk, Black Widow. After everyone arrives, Nick Fury told them everything he had dealt with today, and several people had no opinion. Okay, then let's go now. There was nothing more to say, so Nick Fury stopped what he didn't say yet. As soon as his voice fell, the first to disappear was Levi's, and he left a sentence when he entered. Hey man, let's see who gets the first. Although this competition is very naive, Tony's competitive spirit is completely aroused. Vice, you're cheating. After speaking, they chased after Levi's back, and the rest of the people saw the situation and spontaneously followed their footsteps. Levi's was still the first to arrive. Tony, when he arrived, he was already standing at his destination. Hey, Tony, you're a step late. Oh my god, Vice, you just cheated on it. Levi's did not deny this statement, and waited for the person who was born. Hulk, they are still fast. Slower is the group of researchers. Their task today is to protect this group of researchers to investigate the origin of this monster, and there are no other very complex targets. When everyone arrived, Levi's was in the front. The rest of the people presented a circle to these researchers who had little self-protection ability, and they were very relieved to have Levi in front of them. Just need to deal with the unexpected situation behind. Levi walked in front of the stroll, without any nervousness. The people behind are also at ease, and the atmosphere is relaxed. Levi stopped abruptly as he walked, and he saw a figure in front of him. Without seeing the face, Levi still felt that the figure that appeared in this situation was not right at all. Seeing Levi stop, everyone behind him also stopped. Vigilantly, he looked around to check the situation around him. Levi took 2 steps forward, and the figure in front of him became clearer and clearer. After seeing it clearly, Levi knew that this was not a normal human at all, and everything on his body seemed to be put together. None of them are complete, and all them are long. He spotted Levi's and happily said hello to Levi's. We met again, now we should be considered the same kind, right? Tony saw that the figure in front of him was very cold, obviously a monster but had to pretend to be human. This nondescript feeling looks very eerie, and Levi's knows what this monster is up to. She is studying, but now she is learning a half-hanger. The monster also seemed to see the disgust in their eyes, and tilted its head in confusion. If you don't make such a movement with such a frightening face, this action is still very cute. You don't look very satisfied. Well, it's worth my research. Levi didn't move. This monster was very cunning, as if each one was not his own essence. But the next one he encounters will be much stronger than the previous one, and Levi's looked the figure up and down. Are you an individual separated from the body, or in some sense we can't kill you, you resurrected? This Levi is really curious. If the kill becomes stronger once, and this ability seems to be of some use. Levi's is considering using today's check-in on this monster, but he can't be sure of this monster's ability. Chapter 260 Sign-in. Get differentiated ability. Levi's only hesitated for a moment, and multiple abilities had no effect on him anyway. Simply use today's check-in on his monster. Does the host check in for Omega? Levi's has nothing about hesitation. Yes. Successful check-in. Congratulations to the host for obtaining ability differentiation and 100 experience points. Levi's clicked on the system to carefully check the explanation of this ability, and now he also understands what this monster's ability is. This ability can be understood as the kind of duplication, only the monster is differentiated into individuals at different times. The monster definitely also heard Levi's words, and looked like he was carrying his hand. You really asked an interesting question from someone, which made it a little difficult for me to answer, but you can tell if we fight. The monster rushed at him after speaking, and Levi's had already been on guard. He didn't think this one was a good thing, kind fellow. The monster rushing up goes straight for Levi's, and his target is only Levi's. In the blink of an eye, the two sides had fought many times, and when the two stopped, Levi's did not have a single wound on his body. But the monster squatting on the wall already had many openings on its body, and it was bleeding down. But the monster's face did not mean to retreat at all, stretched out his tongue and licked his mouth, and his pupils shrank into a vertical pupil due to excitement. With an evil smile on his lips, he stared at Levi's, who was being lowered. You are strong and qualified as my opponent. Levi's didn't take his words to heart, and even his expression didn't change. After saying this, Omega resumed the second battle, rushing towards Levi like a cannonball on the wall. The speed is very fast, and normal people's eyes can only catch a residual image. The battle is between electric light and flint, and the last thing everyone sees is the monster that has been pressed to the ground by Levi's. The captured monster was not afraid, very happy. It's really fun to compete with you, looking forward to our next meeting. After hearing this, Levi's immediately thought of it and held up a barrier for them. The monster lying on the ground exploded at the same moment as Levi held up the barrier. Levi's frowned at the puddle of mud on the ground. He still didn't know how many things there were on the ground. It is too troublesome to find it like this, and it is necessary to find the main body of this thing as soon as possible and eliminate him. Tony saw Levi walking up to him in a daze. Vice, how are you? Are you worried? Oh, you don't have to worry. We'll definitely help you. Levi's was not worried about this and shook his head. I'm fine. I'm just wondering where the essence of this thing is hidden. The Hulk, who had been watching from behind, walked to the monster's side. I think that since they are all individuals, there must be similarities in the places they choose. Hulk's words caused several others to think, and Levi touched his chin to recall the information given by Cyclops. After the investigation, there was a little eyebrow in my head. I know, you protect these scientific researchers. I'll go and investigate. The remaining few people looked at Levi's in amazement, and before they could even look at them, he had already found them. Or we still go with us, one more person and one more strength. Tony made his suggestion, and several others agreed, and Levius shook his head. Forget it, I'll go alone in this matter. He rejected their opinion. I'll go investigate first. You guys will wait for me here, and I'll be back then. Levi's attitude was so resolute that they didn't force it. Okay, then you have to pay attention to safety. Levi nodded and disappeared from the smile, leaving Tony to probe the situation. When Levi landed, he appeared somewhere in a mountain range, where the top of the mountain was covered with perennial snow. Levi's took a look, then walked up the hill and found the cave according to his instincts. After stopping at the door, I lifted my foot and walked inside. It was very humid inside, and there was still some snow on the ground that had not melted away. Levi's walked around inside, and nothing looked unusual here. He walked to a wall and stopped himself, standing in front of the wall and thinking. After a while, he made a new move, pressed on this wall, and the obstacle in front of him was gone. The crumbs that broke into drops fell to the ground, and the contents revealed their true colors. Zero begging for flowers. In front of him was a woman with her eyes closed, although she was asleep, but she was also very strange. Levi's looked her up and down, and the woman looked like she was about to wake up. Slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were like cold-blooded animals. When he saw Levi's, a smile appeared on the woman's face. You're here? I knew you could find me. The tone of speech was as if how familiar the two were, very intimate. Levi's didn't eat this set at all, reaching out and grabbing her neck. The slender neck that seemed to have no strength was pinched by Levi's, who was expressionless. What are you doing here? The woman who is choked by the neck does not panic at all, and the neck may be a fragile and deadly place for other people, but for her, not at all. I'm not doing anything. Am I not doing what I want to do? She acted very innocent when she said this, and her lowered eyebrows were full of grievances. At this time, Levi's was like a wood that did not understand the style, and would only ask coldly. If Levi's hadn't seen her previous duplication, he could have said that this monster had chosen a good skin. But he had seen it and didn't think it was anything beneath such a seemingly harmless exterior. In that case, then you go and die. Levi definitely knows that there may not be a solution to the general solution, but not necessarily with Phoenix Force. A small ball of jumping flame was slightly condensed in his hand, which looked very cute and had no offensive power. But the appearance of this flame made the omega that Levi's grabbed change his face greatly, and he felt the dangerous smell of this flame. As soon as the body blurred, it fled from Levi's hands. Levi's is naturally not a vegetarian, plus he is not in a very good mood now. The monster thought she could escape, but she stood in place and couldn't move. It was the monster's turn to break the defense, glaring at Liheng hard. What have you done to me? I warn you, better let me go. Knife. Chapter 261. The monster escapes. What can I do? Before you constantly provoked me, I just used a little trick. Levi's looked at the monster in front of him with dead eyes like a dead thing, and Levi's only felt stupid about the person who took the initiative to find the dead. She dared to provoke without knowing her own strength, and Levi's didn't know whether to say whether she was courageous or naive. Omega's face turned white when she heard this. Is Levi's ability the tip of the iceberg on Levi's that she saw before? But she dared to definitely leave a backhand as well. Levi stared at the monster in front of him, standing aside with his chest hugged. This monster's careful thoughts could not be hidden. He wanted to see what else he had backhanded, so he didn't panic at this time. It's just that you are too strong. I yearn for it. How can I be considered a provocation? Levi's didn't take care of it, and after imprisoning with the 400 skill, he took people to Shandong. He was going to take it back to Cyclops for him to deal with, and that was the end of it. Levi's has had enough of playing now and doesn't want to procrastinate any longer. He turned his back to Omega, and Omega behind him bowed his head and did not speak. But her body is slowly blurring, becoming something like fine sand, scattered around her body. Levi's sensed something was wrong and looked back to see the scene. This monster wants to give up his body and run away, and Levi definitely will not let her go so easily. Levi's controlled all the black mist at hand, denying her a chance to escape. Is that all your ability is? A little weak. Now Levi's looks like a big villain, and the smile on his face doesn't look warm at all. And Omega stared at Reeves with a sharp cry, and black veins faintly appeared on his face. Forcefully breaking free from Levi's confinement, a flash appeared a few hundred meters away from Levi's. She knew that she was not Levi's opponent at the moment, and that the ability that Levius had did not match him at all. Did she feel deceived? Levi's was a liar. The thought of this Omega was bursting with anger, but she didn't dare to trouble Levi now. So turn your head and run away without leaving a memory. And if you don't go and stay here, there is only a dead end. Levi's watched her fleeing figure stand in place. He had just left a little thing on the monster's body. This was just enough to monitor the monster's range, so Levi stood still and didn't move. After scanning the perimeter without seeing anything abnormal, they returned to Tony, who were dealing with the remaining monsters in the cave. Levi looked at him carefully and looked behind him. Vice, you're back? How is it now? Levi stood in front of them with ease. I don't have anything. What's wrong? Tony made up for the monster beside him who hadn't died yet, and then looked at Levi's. Didn't you find the monster, or did you encounter something else? Levi still shook his head. I found it but let him go. Tony's face changed drastically when he heard this. What did you say? You let him go? Levi saw him like this, knowing that Tony was worried about something, and gently patted Tony's shoulder. Don't worry, I've marked her so we can find her as long as he's still on this planet. Tony breathed a sigh of relief at hearing this, laughed and hammered Levi's shoulder. You really scared me to death. I thought you did it on purpose. The monsters in the cave have almost been cleaned up, and Tony is around watching the scientists and Levi's chat. Is that monster hard to deal with? How you go and let him go? It's okay, it's not troublesome, you can handle it. To you, Levi's said very lightly, but Tony estimated that Levi's lack of trouble would be greatly reduced. We've collected everything here, and we can go back now. Several people were chatting, and the research on collecting important information had collected what they wanted. Then I'll go back now. I just have something I want to go back to. Levi's heard the sound they had collected and just wanted to go back now. What he said was otherwise hot. Dear Knightley had no opinion and nodded. Then let's go back quickly now. Levi's still said that and then disappeared straight away. Tony still hasn't finished speaking. Tony was a little upset. Hey, Vice, why don't you listen to me? But at this time, Levi couldn't hear at all, and the person had already arrived at the Special People Academy. Appeared in front of Cyclops, who was not used to Levi's ghostly appearance. Seeing him come back and saying hello, you're back? How are things handled? It's okay, just encounter a little problem, wait for them to come and talk to you together. As soon as Cow arrived, Tony and a few others appeared. Hey, we're back, things are taken care of. Levi's, who saw them back, said something about fighting Omega before, and they all thought about it after listening to it. So you can sense his location now? Where has she been during this time? This was Captain America's question, and Tony's focus was not at all different. Hey man, is that monster pretty? Then you are really a blessing. Do you want this Yanfu for you? You can also see what we played before. Levi doesn't think it's a blessing, and it's not a good thing to be targeted by monsters. Tony spread his hands. Then forget it, this good thing still doesn't come. Levi's ignored Tony's words and answered Captain America's. 3.8 I can sense that she is now moving towards the downtown building. Levi's had seen him appear in the middle of nowhere, so he kept rushing to the downtown building. It looked very wrong, and other people felt it. We'll rush over now and stop him before she does. Levi's was just worried about what else had changed, and he knew that he should read a memory of the monster. Now is not the time to hesitate. Several people did not drink a sip of water, and set off non-stop. They rushed to the downtown building together, and they soon appeared on the roof of the building. How much more does she want to come? Brother is in the parking lot. He is below. When they arrived, Omega also arrived. Chapter 262 Successfully clearing up hidden dangers. It's just that they're upstairs and the other one is downstairs. After Levi's words, the others reacted very quickly, and they all used their ability to rush down. They all rushed to the parking lot, and several people's eyes looked at Levi's. Levi's knew what they wanted to ask and nodded affirmatively. He's right in here, I can feel him. Levi's walked into the underground garage first, and the incandescent of the library was open. Everything on the ground in the morning light was a little white, and the huge car carry did not have a sound. Levi's walked in the front, and the rest followed Levi's. The group went deeper, and Levi's walked inside as he felt. Finally stopped in front of a wall, and Tony stepped forward to examine the wall up and down. It's like an ordinary wall, there's nothing wrong with it. Levi's walked in front of this without a word. 10 He smashed the wall and made an entrance for one person to pass through. Without thinking about it, Levi's walked directly in, and the other people quickly followed Levi's when they saw Levi's movements. They walked in and found that there was a huge amount of balls in the middle, and the place they were in was a hallway. All the corridors here are built around the ball in the middle, and Levi's doesn't look at the others, but looks up and down at the huge amounts of the ball in the middle. Their movements could not be hidden, and the sound quickly attracted the surrounding monsters. Tony and they quickly prepared for the team battle, greeting the monsters that flew up to where they knew they were deadly. Levi's still looked at the ball in the middle and took 2 steps in the direction of the ball. After walking in, Levi's equals saw what appeared to be a pool underneath the ball, filled with an unknown liquid. Levi's touched the ball with his hand and found that the shell was full of liquid from the pool. Levi's touched a slimy handful, which didn't feel very good anyway. But Levi saw a figure inside, and he felt right. It must be that monster in it, and Levi's must have done it after that. Directly use violence to tear open the shell of this sphere, This shell is still quite hard. Levi's has to spend some effort with Levi's movements. The things inside are gradually revealing their original appearance. This is not the image that Levi's saw before, but a different look. If Levi's hadn't made a mark on her body, she wouldn't have recognized her. The monster curled up in the middle of the sphere, as if it was being treated by the liquid outside. The body is also changing, becoming more human-like. Levi's was stunned when he saw this scene, and the figure in the middle also opened his eyes. Looking at Levi's, who was standing in the gap, "Here you are, it's time to liquidate everything." Levi's stood in the gap and looked at Omega inside. "You are still the same as the bereaved dog before. Why do you have the confidence to talk to me now?" He glanced at the liquid underneath the sphere, and this huge amount of sphere. "Is it because of this?" Without saying a word, Levi's threw down a flame, and this flame was like alcohol when it was stained with this liquid. "Grab it and sleep." Burns up. The scorching fire licks the sphere above, and the temperature around it rises a few points in the blink of an eye. A strange scent began to emanate in the air, making Tony visibly irritated by the monster he was dealing with. The attack on Tony also became more and more fierce, and when Tony did not react, he was swept to the wall by a mechanical arm swept by the monster in front of him. The monster without a block rushed straight at Levi's, trying to get rid of him. But High was not close to Levi's, and was knocked off the core by Thor, who got up, and was completely scrapped. After the fight, Tony also looked at Levi's, and his face was still a little proud. Levi nodded. "Leave it to us," with confidence. But the monster's attention is all on Levi's, desperately trying to get around Tony and get closer to Levi's. Levi's noticed this scene and knew that this matter might have something to do with the water he lit. Without giving Levi's time to think, he heard the wind. Raising his eyes, he saw the hand that was half immobile in front of him, and Omega quickly distanced himself from Levi's when he saw that this blow was not successful. Hide in the distance to observe Levi's pojang. Find time to start. This made Levi's really feel the increase in the power of this monster, and had little impact on Levi's. His expression didn't change, but he paid attention to when she would rush out to give herself a blow when she was in a high-speed movement. Soon, the monster appeared from Levi's side. Levi seized the moment to drag the Omega that appeared, blocks Omega's next move, keeping him in place. But Omega's power increased, and he deftly flipped away from Levi's hands. And the number of monsters around them is also increasing significantly, making Tony a little difficult for them. Levi's knew he couldn't drag it out now, or Tony wouldn't be able to hold on. Levi's 910 was too lazy to deal with this monster, and directly turned on mind control, aiming at Omega. With the strong intervention of Levi's, the countryman entered the monster's mind. Levi's went through all his memories and found his source. But none of this is very important anymore, and Levi's directly destroys his spirit. The monster only felt as if some electric drill was drilling in his brain, and the pain was cracking. He screamed in pain and crawled on the ground, and finally fainted completely. After Levi's dealt with this, the other monsters also quieted down. Tony and they were able to get out of the battle and walk to Levi's side. "Hey, good job, we can finally give a sigh of relief." Instead of seeing Levi's, Black Widow was looking at the monster on the ground that had fainted. She hadn't seen any fatal injuries on the monster's body, but the monster looked very painful. Black Widow didn't know why, but when she was thinking, someone around her called her name. She quickly came to her senses and saw that everyone was looking at him. "Sorry, what did you just say?" "I didn't hear clearly. I just saw you in a daze, so I called you." Steve did call Black Widow in a daze, and he thought she was affected by a monster. Chapter 263. The follow-up will be handed over to you, S.H.I.E.L.D. The interrupted Black Widow didn't think about it anymore and found the rope from himself. After trapping the wailing monster on the ground and making sure that it would not loosen, he looked at Tony and them. "What do I do with this when I bring it back?" "Someone will deal with it. Let's check the situation here." Tony didn't look back, leaning around the ball, and there was no flame on the surface of the burning pool. Tony walked over to the pool and looked at it. It was so dark that he couldn't see how deep it was. But Tony was particularly curious about the pool and searched around for any mechanism around. After searching for a long time, Tony did not find it, and his actions attracted the curiosity of several other people. "Tony, what are you looking for?" Tony turned back to the pool and said, "I'm curious what's in this pool." Hearing his words, several other people also walked to the edge of the pool, looked at the pool, and didn't know what it was about. The water was so muddy that he couldn't see where the bottom was, and Levi's looked around. "I found a distant organ." "Hey, what is that organ for?" Levi said as he walked to the side of the mechanism and pulled it down. The calm surface of the pool began to react, falling little by little. Seeing this movement, everyone's eyes fell on the pool, and as the water level dropped, the full picture of the pool inside began to slowly emerge. Black Widow covered his mouth in surprise at first sight, unable to believe what he saw. Tony also sighed, "Oh my god, what is this?" Levi's looked back and saw what was underneath the pool, one corpse after another without decomposition. It was very well preserved, but everyone's expression was very painful. From this, it can be thought of what inhuman torture these people suffered before their lives, and Levi did not look carefully. Very familiar faces were seen inside, the faces of the monsters, so Levi's remembers it now. Tony saw this scene and walked to the side of the monster and kicked her fiercely, but this did not vent his anger at all. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in silence, and no one made a sound. After a long time, it was Levi who spoke up. Let's go back first, and talk about the matter here later. Everyone nodded and agreed to Levi's, and several people returned to the Special People's School in silence. Teacher Coaster, we're back. Levi came back and greeted Cyclops, who saw them come back and put down the documents in their hands. Seeing that the faces of several of them were not very good, there were some doubts. Why do you guys look listless? Cyclops had never seen them like this before, and looked around them. Tony looked at them and told them everything they had come across. Is this the case? I know. Then the rest is up to you. S.H.I.E.L.D. Cyclops didn't want to take over the trouble, and the mess was left to S.H.I.E.L.D. to them. Tony and Black Widow laughed helplessly when they heard this, knowing that they couldn't shirk it. Let's talk to the above. Cyclops nodded. You geese discuss. Levi's didn't react to their conversation and looked at Cyclops after they left. Shall we leave this matter to them? Cyclops nodded. Anyway, we handled most of it, and the rest they didn't deal with too much. What about you? Do you have any comments? Levi nodded. Yes, I think it works. Anyway, they have more people than us. Levi's didn't feel uncomfortable when he said this, which would definitely vomit blood if someone else outside heard it. Cyclops put his arm around Levi's shoulders. How's that? Will you go later? Hey Vice, we're going to play golf later? After the two discussed it, they went out together. When they played easily on their side. It seems to be quite good to see you playing. I also want to try. Levi's got up and stretched and moved his body. What do you mean by the director? He seems to be a little dissatisfied with Levi's. Tony saw him look at each other like this, and when the meeting was over, they got together. Nick Fury nodded and didn't say anything more, but turned to deal with a follow-up. Man, are you going? You don't have to worry about this. The director won't do anything to Levi's ability. Don't you know the money? The people around her were reminded of Levi's ability by her words, as if no one could start on Levi's. Who the hell is this, and how wrong Levi is about his own ability? Hearing about golf, Levi's is not tired and full of energy. Tony saw a clue and turned back to ask the other people's opinions. Cyclops nodded seriously when he heard this. Yes, how many people are on our side? If there is a little loss, we are very sad. Cyclops invited Levi's, which gave Levi's a different look. Now their Special People School attracts most of the special people, and they still have X-gene reagents. Tony didn't mind either, and walked outside with Captain America past the Hulk and asked again. Black Widow saw Levi's reaction and was a little confused about Levi's thoughts. Mr. Coaster, when did you become interested in this matter? Okay, we'll go now. S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't so good. Nick Fury frowning in the room. Then let them deal with this matter. Let's rest. Correct. Levi's also agrees to leave this matter to us. I'm not going. I have other things. After running for so long, Levi's was also tired and planned to go home and rest. Black Widow rejected their suggestion, turned around and left. Levi's, he didn't have any reaction. It should be regarded as acquiescence, right? Okay, I'm fine. Captain America spread his hands. No, I see that the director seems to be fine. In that case, we will do what the director said, and everyone is off work. Their little party ended with that, and Tony took his coffee. Black Widow stood by the door with his chest hugged, his expression faint. Captain America put his arm around Tony's shoulders. Hey man, go for. Chapter 264 The Birth of Ultron. Hulk smiled and refused. Oh, I'm not going. Tony was not disappointed to hear this and waved at them. Then goodbye, guys, I'll go first. Tony pulled Captain America away. The conference room fell silent, and the remaining three said goodbye to each other and left. Hey man, here you are. Look at the Ultron we designed together. Tony was so excited this morning that he called Banner, who was still sleeping. In the morning, Banner thought something had happened and hurried over. Did something happen? Summoned me so early. Banner is still a little confused and was called here by Tony. Tony showed Banner what he had recently researched. I need your help. After reading it, Banner was very disapproving of Tony's plan. Your plan is too cold. Tony has no special emotions and convinces Banner on his own, and in the end Banner chooses to help Tony. The two studied for a long time, and integrated a lot of things. JARVIS was also placed around, and Tony named the new cluster of Data Ultron. The two came to an end when they had to leave, and the freshman Data was at this moment Sioux Crossing. JARVIS greeted the Data amicably, but soon discovered that something was wrong with him. 263, JARVIS when he was about to call Tony. This Data controlled JARVIS, who was much stronger than JARVIS and was more aggressive than JARVIS. Then manipulated other equipment in the lab to make a shell for himself. During this time, Ultron is also absorbing knowledge constantly, giving him a more complete picture of where he is now. At this time, Tony didn't know what was going on at all, and was having a pleasant conversation with someone. Levi's over there, Saka in his phone. Master, I just found a strange data. He seems to be very hostile to humans. Saka sensed that something was wrong and reported it to Levi's for the first time. Levi's, who was playing golf, stopped his movements and took his phone out of his pocket. Can you find out where, Bakch, it came from? Levi's had a bad feeling and thought of another possibility. Saka did not make a sound. It should be according to Levi's words to investigate. I thought it was because I don't know how long it took to wait for Saka to reply. Master, I investigated the location. Saka then sent Levi the location he investigated, and he saw it on his phone. Thinking back in my head, if memory serves, this is Tony's building. Seeing this, Levi was more certain that it must be Ultron, and Tony secretly researched it. Saka didn't look good when he saw Levi's, but he had another piece of news to tell Levi's. Master, he seems to have prepared a shell for himself. Levi's face darkened even darker when he heard this, and he disappeared from place in a blink of an eye. When leaving, he didn't forget to ask Saka to contact Tony, and when Vanny received the call, he was frightened by Levi's tone. Vice, do you have something to do with me now? What did you do that you don't know yourself? I'll go find you where you are now. On the phone, this matter will not be clear for a while, and Levi's plans to go directly to arrest it. Tony told Levi where he was, and the next second Levi appeared at the door of the place. I've arrived. Are you with Banner? Tony still didn't know what was happening, and when he heard the name of the Banner mentioned, he glanced at the Banner not far away. He's with me too. Are you looking for us for something? As soon as his voice fell, he saw something soaring into the sky from the location of his building. Seeing this, Tony was stunned, and Levi also saw it. Do you know what I came to you for? That's Ultron? Tony couldn't believe it now. He remembered that the program he had set up wasn't like this, and he was meant to help. Yes, that's the Ultron you researched. Don't be stunned. Call Banner together. After Levi finished speaking, he went straight to where Ultron was, perhaps sensing danger. When Levi's arrived, all that was left was a useless shell. Tony also arrived at this time, and saw the mess inside, and the injured people wailing on the ground. Tony didn't dare to look and twisted his head to the side. Levi's looked at the scene in front of him and turned to look at Tony. Tony, look at the good things you've done. What have you researched? Tony was also very remorseful at this time. He originally researched it to protect humans, and did not expect that the result would be like this. I don't know. I thought he would be something to protect humanity. I don't think it's useless to say anything at this time. Well, now is not the time to say this. We have to get him back as soon as possible. Saka, can you find out where he is now? Levi's can't be sure of the location right now, because things have changed, and he doesn't know where the thing will be now. It still feels very responsible. Hearing what Levi said, I went to investigate. At this time, Banner and the others also arrived and saw the mess in front of them. Here's what's going on. Captain America is ignorant of the current state and is a little puzzled. Levi's didn't want to explain, and his eyes fell on Tony and Banner. You should ask them about this. Banner checked it around. He knew why, but he still couldn't believe it. After checking it out, the result was the same as Banner thought. Hearing Levi's words, everyone's eyes fell on the two of them, and Tony looked pained. I don't know, and I don't know why things are the way they are. Then Tony told others about his plan and the origin of this thing. The others didn't quite approve of Tony's idea. Why didn't you start this project with us? Tony, who was being questioned, was speechless, and Banner was also very guilty at this time. He should not have helped Tony at the time. Saka investigated and came back. I'm sorry, Master. I didn't find a clue either. Levi's then remembered a place in the movie, a place where Ultron would definitely go, because there's what Ultron needs most, to craft his body. Investigate where S.H.I.E.L.D is now. Let's go over. Chapter 265 Vanadium Alloy. I'm sorry the host, I didn't find information about this person. After investigating on the internet, Saka did not find relevant information on the internet. Several other people looked at Levi's. Don't worry about this for the time being. Let's go to Nick Fury first. It was Black Widow who spoke, and the others had no opinion, acquiescing to Levi's words. I'm not going with you. I think I know where he is. Levi's rejected their words and disappeared in place. Tony and Banner immediately burst out. Let's go with you. Levi had no opinion. If you want to go, just follow and go. After saying that, Levi's disappeared in a blink of an eye, and Tony and Banner followed in Levi's footsteps and disappeared in place. The rest of the people looked at each other. Are we going to follow or go to the chief? Steve looked at the rest, waiting for their choice. Let's go to Nick first. Nick doesn't know about this yet, and we'll have it easier with Nick's help. The Black Widow still insisted on his idea, and Hawkeye thought for a while. My opinion is the same as Natasha Romanoff. Steve nodded when he heard the choice of the two. Okay, we'll go find Nick now, and then go support them. As soon as they said and left, the three disappeared in a blink of an eye and headed to S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick was looking at the information in his hand when they arrived, and was a little surprised to see the three. "Why are you here? Did something happen?" "This matter is still Black Widow's, and the other two added some in due time." Nick Fury also learned the ins and outs of this matter at this time, and he was a little angry after listening to it. "What exactly is Tony doing?" "Don't discuss such a big matter with us." Black Widow anticipated his anger and didn't speak now, waiting until he calmed down before speaking. "They have rushed to stop it. We need your help, and now they have rushed to Wakanda." Black Widow knew their location, but the question left the few people wondering, what are they going to do there? Is there anything there? "There's a hardest alloy in the world." Nick Fury answered the question, and his eyes fell on the shield beside Steve. Hearing this, they also understood why they went there. This robot wants to make its own body out of vanadium alloy. "Oh my god. The idea town is really crazy." "Well, now is not the time to sigh. You guys go to support them first." Nick Fury interrupts their conversation. "Tony has researched this thing is too dangerous, and he is in charge of Tony's robot army. It's a huge amount of hidden danger, and Nick Fury feels a bit of a day now." The others did not hesitate and rushed over according to Tony's position. "And Levi's side has been matched with Ultron's robot, and Ultron has met Levi's." "I know you, the strongest mutant Levi. Why are you protecting those hypocritical and weak humans?" Ultron recognizes Levi's ability, but doesn't understand why Levi did it. "They are indeed quite weak, but whether they should survive or not is not a decision for them." The first half of Levi's still agrees with Ultron's words, and the second half is completely different. Ultron's electronic eyes looked Levi's up and down. "I think we should be a good partner, and I seriously invite you." In Ultron's search, Levi's is an infinitely close to invincible person, and Ultron needs such a partner. In this way, his plan will definitely go very smoothly and destroy all the humans here. "I don't think it's a good plan, and I won't work with you." Levi's didn't have that idea, and wouldn't agree to Ultron. Banner and Tony were nervous at first, really worried that Levi's would be brainwashed by Ultron. If there's anyone else in the world who knows them all, it's Ultron. Knowing everything about them, Tony regretted it at this point. Ultron saw that Levi's was not in this way and knew that it was hopeless to recruit him, and Ultron would not pretend to be there, and directly attacked them. "In that case, then we have nothing to talk about." Ultron's attack on Levi's was ineffective, and Levi's went straight up. Zero ask for flowers. And Ultron is not stupid, knowing that he has no chance of winning against Levi now. The attack was just a false shot, and his target was still vanadium alloy. After taking the vanadium alloy, he jumped out of the window and disappeared into the sea, and by the time Tony caught up, there was no longer a figure. Seeing this scene, Tony angrily hammered the wall next to him. "Damn it, let him escape." After Tony finished speaking, he looked at Levi's, trying to get a solution from Levi's. "Hey, Grey buddy, are you all okay?" "We're here to help you." Just as Tony was about to ask Levi's, Steve walked in from outside with Black Widow. Breaking the current stalemate, Black Widow walked in and felt that something was wrong with them before. 0.0, didn't catch Ultron or let him escape? Neither Levi's nor Tony answered, and Black Widow had to focus his inquiring eyes on the Hulk. The Hulk nodded. "That's right, we didn't catch it." "Vice, what do we do now?" Tony didn't care about the reaction of the rest of them and kept his eyes on Levi's. "I don't know where he is, but he'll still be moving." Levi spread his hands. He was also helpless about the network, and could only rely on Saka. Thinking of this, Levi's took out his mobile phone. "Saka, can you monitor the abnormalities that appear on the internet? Please tell me this information if you can." Saka was a little unhappy. "Master, you have something to do now, Zongyuan." "Nothing to do, summer to welcome spring." Levi's laughed when he heard this. "Saka, where did you learn this word? It's not right to use it like this." Tony's eyes were straight as he watched from the sidelines, and Sakami's current state was what he wanted most. Tony stared at the phone in Levi's hand with a burning gaze, and Hulk also reacted. He saw that Levi's Saka was very human, something that could not be seen in JARVIS. JARVIS is also very powerful, but it has no sense of autonomy. The one in Levi's hands has its own emotions, and it looks very similar to people. Chapter 266. The Academy was attacked by Ultron. They hadn't noticed it before, but now they had the mind to pay attention to Sakago's situation. "Vice, can you give me a look at your Sakago?" Tony couldn't help but ask Levi's. Levi's knew what they wanted to do when he saw the look in their eyes, and refused without thinking about it. "No, you need to ask Sakayu about this. I have no opinion if he agrees." Levi's didn't treat Sakayu as an artificial intelligence a long time ago, and gave Sakayu a lot of choices. Sakayu knew they were talking, and he didn't talk during this time. Hearing Levi mention his name, he made a voice. "I refuse this matter. Sakayu doesn't want to be studied." Levi's put away his phone without saying a word when he heard this. "You guys better deal with your mess first. Now is not the time to say this." Tony was a little sorry, but he also knew that now was not the time to study. When he is done with this matter, he can pester Levi to ask for it, and now he will deal with his own mess. "So can we just wait for the rest of our plans?" "There's no other way." Steve brought the topic back in a timely manner, and several people's attention turned to the matter. "There's no way. unless you can find his data circulating in the online world. Levi's shrugged his shoulders and lifted his feet out of the cabin. The outside was still the same as before they came, and this happened so quickly that nothing even changed outside. Others followed Levi's out of the cabin and walked along the shore. Let's go back to S.H.I.E.L.D. now. There is no other way. Seeing that they were all frowning, Black Widow suggested that they first meet S.H.I.E.L.D. Then goodbye, I will go back to the academy first. Levi's also didn't want to get involved with their S.H.I.E.L.D. and disappeared from place after saying goodbye. When he reappeared, he was back at Mutant School. The students who were on the playground recognized Levi's at a glance. Good afternoon, Mr. Vice. Are you coming back from outside? Hello students, don't you have to go to class now? If Levi's remembers correctly, they should have had physical training in the afternoon, and now they are all outside. When the student heard Levi's ask, he knew what was going on and explained, well, my college has just been hacked. The teachers are rushing to the meeting. Levi's face turned bad when he heard this, and he didn't have to think about who it was. Okay, goodbye students. Levi said goodbye to them and disappeared to Cyclops' office. Cyclops was in a meeting at this time, and everyone else was there. Seeing Levi's appear in the doorway, hey, Vice, you're back. Look at you like this. You must know what's going on, right? I know. It has something to do with what I want to say. Levi's found himself a stool to sit on and told them everything he had just known. So we were attacked because of this, Ultron? Levi nodded when he heard Cyclops' words. This is indeed the case. Has our academy lost anything? If there is a loss, Levi will definitely find Tony to come back, and Jarvis must not suffer a loss. We checked and there were no major losses for the time being, as if one party protected us. The person in charge of this piece answered and showed them the results of the data they processed. Hearing that someone had protected their school, Levi looked into his pocket, and this matter must have been handled by Saka. At the end of the meeting, everyone has been assigned tasks, and it is almost time to end. The panicked people saw that Levi's had calmed down a lot, and Levi stood above the crowd. Otherwise, the loss of the academy would not be so little. Levi looked at the data on the screen thoughtfully, but Levi's didn't pity him. He had made it up himself. Saka still hadn't changed his tone, but Levi didn't know why he heard a little tiredness. Cyclops knows what kind of character Levi's is, and this is certainly not the case with Levi's. Tony took a sip of the coffee 0.1 coffee in his hand. I don't feel very good right now, Vice, you know. It's hard for you, Sakami. Thanks to your help in this matter. Levi spat out a sentence without a javelin, and the laser instantly understood what he meant. Oh? Tony, what's going on with you? Master, I just found out that someone has launched an attack on the Academy's network, and I just went to fend off it. That huge office, and inside were Levi's and Cyclops looked Levi's up and down. While the two were talking, Levi's noticed fireworks rising in the east. Ignoring them, Levi's walked upstairs as he remembered and saw Tony sitting in his office chair. Tony also noticed. Hey, damn it, what is this guy doing? When Levi's arrived at Tony's company, he found that it was also a mess. Soon Levi learned that it was Tony's legion of robots flying in the air. Levi spent this to complain, and a flash appeared where it happened. Although the loss was not huge, Levi still had to ask Tony to reimburse the loss, otherwise their school would be thankful. My company just got attacked by Ultron and now something is wrong. I put away my phone and went to Tony's company. What's going on over there? Tony was similarly attacked, but Tony was not so lucky. He didn't have Jarvis' help. What are you going to do with this matter? Surely you're not going to end up like this, are you? Saka disappeared after saying this, and Levi knew that she might have gone to take care of the rest. Miss Saka, are you okay? Cool, it's really Vice. It's really reassuring to say this. Everyone leave in an orderly manner. Don't panic. I can see that you really don't look very good now. It's what I have to do. I'll be fine. Okay, you go about your own business. I'll go find Tony. Tear him down. Okay, I know this matter, and the safety matter will be entrusted to you. But there was another, more important thing before that, and Levi's took out his phone. Looking at the whole company now, it should be in a stagnation. Are you okay now? The loss is serious. I'm looking for you to talk about this. Chapter 267 Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. According to Levi's, everyone began to evacuate in an orderly manner. Seeing that they had begun to evacuate in an orderly manner, Levi's went up against the crowd, his figure very light and flexible. Rushing towards the place where the accident occurred, Levi saw the destruction of the two siblings. There were also some robots made by Iron Man behind him, and Levi's recognized who these two people were at a glance. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. It seems that the plot here has not changed, and the two of them still choose to work with Ultron. At this time, he saw a robot about to smash the huge amounts of stones in his hand into the fleeing crowd below, and he immediately used ability to eliminate the Chicken Man. Robots of this strength have no effect at all, but the large number can be regarded as completing the shortcomings of a single ability. At this time, Iron Man also hurried over in his own clothes and flew past Levi's. Hey, we need to evacuate the people inside this building quickly. Levi nodded. I know this. You'll go to evacuate. I will meet those two people. Tony didn't pause when he heard this, and flew directly towards the damaged area, and Levi's also deftly shuttled between the buildings 10 constantly to get closer to Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch was also paying attention to Levi, and Scarlet Witch had noticed it since he appeared. Now that Levi is moving, she knows right away, talking to her big brother Quicksilver next to her. Be careful, he appeared, his ability is too weird, pay attention to safety. Quicksilver knew who she was talking about and nodded solemnly. Well, you should be more careful about this yourself. After speaking, the two no longer stood together, but began to split into two ways, and the two flew in different directions. Levi's didn't react to the duo's movements and rushed straight in the direction of Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch, who was on the run, took the time to look back at Levi's and saw that he was chasing after him. Scarlet Witch feels a little bad and tries to shake off Levi's with the surrounding buildings. Levi's didn't actually use his ability, but followed Scarlet Witch not far away. He just wanted to know where Scarlet Witch was going, and the two of them obviously had a plan. Quicksilver high-speed movement for a while, finding that Levi's hadn't followed at all, knowing that Levi was chasing his sister. Standing in place and thinking for a moment, he knew how strong Levi's was, and Scarlet Witch definitely couldn't do it alone. Finally, Quicksilver gritted his teeth and turned his head to run in the direction of Scarlet Witch, who was not sure how much faster than Scarlet Witch. After running for a while, he found the two figures, and Quicksilver sped up to catch up with his sister. Wonder, how are you now? Scarlet Witch didn't expect his big brother to return, and the expression on his face changed dramatically. What are you doing when you come back at this time? Didn't I say we would meet at the agreed place? Scarlet Witch is very angry now. How can Quicksilver just disrupt the plan? I can't rest assured of you, you know. Levi's ability is very strong. Hurry up, pull me, I'll take you to run. Quicksilver looked at Levi's, who had been following them infertilely behind him, and knew that he was not using the calendar at this time. Now that things have come to this, Scarlet Witch knows that there is nothing to change, and reluctantly hands his hand to Quicksilver. I'll use ability to pause Levi's for a moment, and you need to seize that time to run away. Scarlet Witch said that there was already movement on her hands, and along with her movements, red energy was circulating around her. This is her ability. Quicksilver nodded when she saw this scene. Her expression was very solemn. Okay, I know. With a dance of Scarlet Witch's fingers, the last Goodkin rushed towards Levi's. Levi's, who was chasing behind, sensed that something was wrong, and looked up to see a ball of energy rushing towards him. He used the teleportation ability to move himself to a safe place, and saw that it was all in a static state. The falling rubble was frozen in midair, and Levi's understood at a glance that this was Scarlet Witch's ability. Quick, let's go. Quicksilver didn't say a word when he heard this, and raised his speed to the fastest, and the person was an afterimage that instantly disappeared into Levi's line of sight. Looking in the direction they left, Levi mused, Scarlet Witch is a potential high-level mutant, but now it seems that her ability has not been fully aroused. While Levi's was thinking, Iron Man appeared behind him. What are you standing here thinking? The ones who just escaped are two mutants, and the girl is quite strong. Levi answered Tony's words. Tony saw Levi like this and had a guess in his heart. You're not going to have a crush on that girl, are you? Levi looked back at Tony. I'm not a stallion. Okay, I won't look at one and love one, but the affirmation of ability, entering the academy may be a good help. Tony also knew what Luheng meant when he heard this, and also looked at the place where the two left. I think you might be having some trouble collecting the two of them, you know. They just attacked the mansion. Levi's nodded to indicate that he knew about the 950 things, but that the problem was not very serious. Are the casualties coming out now? You're coming, and reinforcements have arrived over there. It was reinforcements that the crazy robots were all under control. By this time, the others were late. Vice, how are you doing here? Black Widows, who fell to Levi's side, patted Levi's on the shoulder and asked Levi's about the situation. People fled, but I left a little thing on them. Levi's took out his phone, pictured, and there was a red speeding moving on it. Everyone was staring at this moving red dot, too fast. In just a few minutes, I had arrived at a place on the outskirts, where the red dot had stopped. Here I know that it is an abandoned military factory. Tony knew the place and recognized it at a glance. Then what are you still stunned about? We're on our way now. As soon as Levi's finished speaking, he disappeared in place, and by the time he appeared, he had appeared near the abandoned factory. He didn't know the structure of this, so he walked here very carefully. Who knows if this is not some trap left by that scheming Ultron. Be careful and always don't go wrong. Chapter 268 Ultron's Death. When Levi's walked in, the rest of the people were also nearby. This guy still likes to go it alone. If it weren't for his ability, I would have been there. Tony complained a little when he landed, but after being glanced at by several other people, he withdrew and closed his mouth. Okay, don't look at me with such eyes, I know it. Tony and a few others walked into the factory, and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver appeared in front of Ultron. We're back. Ultron is looking at the body he made, and there is still one last step before this body can be used. You're back. And you've brought back some mice. Ultron pointed out a screen from his side, and on it was Lu Heng's face. Scarlet Witch was surprised to see the face on the screen. How did they keep up? Ultron's eyes swept around Scarlet Witch's body and immediately found the narrowing of the problem. Stretching out his hand, Quicksilver on the side saw that he was very nervous and protected Scarlet Witch behind him. Ultron saw Quicksilver in action. Don't be nervous, I'm just taking a little thing. After speaking, he took down the little thing standing behind Scarlet Witch and crushed it, and then looked at the screen next to him. Their eyes lingered on Tony's goddess for a long time, and Quicksilver and the Red Witch looked at each other when they saw this scene. I don't know what Ultron means by this action, but neither of them speaks. Just as the atmosphere was silent, there was a huge amount of explosion outside. Scarlet Witch saw Tony on the screen and they were attacked by a robot, and the huge amounts of explosions came from that. That alone wasn't enough. Ultron woke up all the robots. However, their target this time is not Tony and Levi, but the city not far away. Ultron's joy was evident at this point, especially when he saw Tony tapping the edge of the screen with pleasure when he was hit by a robot he had made. Compared to the other four, Levi's side is much easier. No matter where the robots came from, Levi's directly manipulated ability to change the molecules in them. Soon the robots became a pile of broken copper and iron on the ground, and after cleaning up, Levi's continued to go here. The movement on Levi's side attracted Ultron, and seeing Levi's movements increase his attack on him. Source constantly sent robots to slow Levi's footsteps, and Ultron's own body has also entered the end at this time, and the progress is 99%. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver stood silent, watching Ultron move. You two are still going to the city to attract their attention. I'll be here soon. Ultron definitely didn't forget the two and gave his own instructions, and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver had no opinion. Quicksilver took Scarlet Witch and disappeared into the same place, heading for the city. At the same time as they left, the body behind Ultron was completed, and Ultron immediately gave up his current body, transferring his consciousness to the newly made body. The mesh opened its eyes after a while. The first to move his body. This body Ultron is very satisfied. Stepping out of the production pod, he glanced at the screen around him and immediately left to keep up with Quicksilver and the Red Witch. When Levi's appeared in this place, he noticed that something was wrong. There was no one in it. Levi's immediately thought of what Ultron wanted to do, and disappeared in the city in a blink of an eye. Sure enough, it was not the same as he thought. There are now a large number of robots in the city. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch stood in the distance and looked at the scene below. Scarlet Witch couldn't bear it and looked at his big brother. Big brother, are we really doing this right? Quicksilver saw this scene in front of them. They just wanted to take revenge on Tony, but they couldn't control it. What is happening in the city attracts a lot of attention, and Cyclops stands in the office with a solemn expression. Come, send out the capable people of our school to resources, and the rest protect the school. Definitely also has a headache for Nick Fury, who is now getting calls accusing him of being ineffective. Nick Fury turned off his phone directly in a fit of anger, and was very angry watching the broadcast on TV. What about Tony? Why haven't I come back now? Ultron began to wreak havoc when he arrived in the city, and he had no scruples about showing his power in the city. The people sent by the X Academy soon arrived at the scene and began to clean up the robots that were being destroyed here. Levi appeared beside Scarlet Witch. Is that what you two want to see? Levi's sudden voice startled the two, and Quicksilver disappeared with his sister. Standing at a very far distance and watching Levi vigilantly, it was simply terrifying. If two people were two corpses on the battlefield. If it weren't for the fact that the current Levi's didn't have killing intent, they wouldn't know how many times they had seen death. This matter has nothing to do with you. It's our own choice. Levi's didn't entangle with the two men and rushed to Ultron. Ultron was standing on a tall building watching at this time, and felt a trace of not very good breath. Instinctively dodging to the side, Levi's figure appeared in front of him. Ultron wasn't surprised to see Levi's. You're here? It just so happened that I wanted to try my new body. Ultron raised his left hand as he said this, and a laser shot from his left hand rushed towards Levi's. But this laser was not effective against Levi's, and when he was close to Levi's, he suddenly turned around and rushed towards Ultron. Ultron seemed to have expected it, and easily avoided the boat. You really know the same as I know. It seems that such an ability can't hurt you. Levi's didn't move when he heard this, and stood in place and looked at Ultron quietly. Do you, please, surrender yourself, or wait for me to do it? Levi's didn't want to talk nonsense with him either, and now just wanted to go back after dealing with this matter. He had just seen quite a few people in the academy here, and Levi's knew that Cyclops must have sent them to help. Ultron was irritated by Levi's tone and grinned. Levi's, you are too crazy. It is not certain who will let whom surrender then. Levi's didn't want to talk nonsense, and used his ability to imprison Ultron, and the person disappeared in place, and when he reappeared, he was already behind him. Reaching out, he directly took out his core and crushed it. He had known Ultron's backhand and backed up a copy of his own data. Levi's took his minor gem and wiped out that last bit of backup. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver felt a little weak when they saw Levi contribute to Ultron so cleanly. It seems that the first time they faced Levi's, he didn't use his full strength. Chapter 269 Saka's new body. Quicksilver saw that things were going to be like this, and immediately decided to leave with Scarlet Witch. After dealing with Ultron, Levi's looked at the remaining body of Ultron in front of him, and did not rush to chase Quicksilver. He took out his mobile phone. "Saka, can you still use this body? It just looks a little ugly now." But Levi's has a way. Saka himself probed his body on the ground, a little unhappy. "It can be. But master, he is also too ugly. Can I not go?" "Just kidding. Robots are also aesthetic, although Saka wants a body, but this one on the ground is too ugly." If Ultron were alive to hear this, he would definitely want to beat these two up. He is dead, and this has to be pulled out. Levi's was also a little crying and laughing when he heard this. "You're quite picky, you look." After that, Levi began to use his ability and began to make new bodies for Saka according to his own aesthetic. After some operation, a very perfect, but at the same time compatible with the high level of mechanical sense robot appeared on the ground. Levi's made detailed adjustments and took back the 753's own ability. "How? Now you're satisfied with this, right?" I have to say that Levi's aesthetic is still online, and anyone who sees the robot on the ground now will marvel at the perfection. Saka liked the body made by Levi's very much and happily entered this body. "Thank you, master." But after Saka entered this body, there was no sound, and Levi's felt that something was wrong. Saka go? Levi's didn't hear the familiar electronic sound, and Lu Heng had a feeling that something big was wrong. "Pick up the robot on the ground, flash and disappear in place." It was in the Academy's lab when it appeared, and Levi's placed the robot in his hand on the table. The people around who were dealing with their own affairs all gathered around when they saw this. "Mr. Vice, is something going on? Let's see how she's doing now." Levi's doesn't know what happened to Saka, and this matter still needs to be checked by a professional person. Hearing Levi's words, the people around him also moved, and all kinds of testing instruments were used on Saka's body. The computer is linked, and everyone gathers around the computer to check the problem. Levi's couldn't read what was scrolling on it. "How's it going? What's the problem?" The expressions of the people who were observing in front of him were very strange, and they spoke up after watching for a long time. "Mr. Vice, it seems that the remnants of the data and the new data are vying for command of this body." After speaking, the number of people sitting in front of the computer looked at Levi's, wanting to know what Levi's planned to do. "So is there any way to help Saka now?" Levi's knew that this matter was quite serious, and if he was not careful, Saka would disappear. He was still to blame for this matter, and let Saka in without careful inspection. "Yes, no, Mr. Vice, we have no way to deal with this matter for the time being, and once we intervene, it may cause irreversible damage." Levi's didn't speak when he heard this, and kept staring at the two fluctuating data on the computer. The student next to him was a little worried when he saw Levi like this, and looked at his face carefully. "Mr. Vice, are you okay now? If you're tired, you can take a break, and we'll watch for you." Levi's looked away from the screen and shook his head. "I'm okay, it's okay, I'll leave it to you here. I still have a little business." Everyone in the research room nodded. "Mr. Vice, if you have something to do, leave first. Here we are." After they finished speaking, Levi's disappeared in place, and when he reappeared, he was already in the place where Ultron was hiding before. Now it's empty, back, and empty. Levi's rummaged through it. "I saw the computer in front, opened it and started checking it inside." He wanted to know if there was anything useful to Saka, but he also knew little about it. It is still necessary for professional people to know if this thing is useful. Lu Heng thought of Tony. Since Ultron was made by Tony must know what to do with it. Lu Heng thought for a while and felt that this was the most reliable thing, and now he set off to find Tony. Now Tony is still on the battlefield, helping to deal with the follow-up. Levi startled him when he appeared behind him. "Vice, why don't you speak?" "Suddenly appearing behind my back is to scare dead man." Levi's ignored his words. "I have something I need your help with. Are you free now?" "I have time now. What do you need me to do for you?" Tony glanced at the battlefield now, and he was almost no longer needed. When Levi heard his promise, he took Tony's hand. Before Tony could finish his words, Levi disappeared in place, and when he appeared, he was already in the research room in the academy. "Hey man, can you talk to me next time like this? I'm not feeling very good right now." Look at his current situation. Saka. Levi brings Tony to the computer and asks Tony to see how Saka is doing. Tony's eyes were glued to them after only one glance, and his mouth kept praise. "It's amazing, she's more perfect than Ultron. It's just what I want it to be." Levi's didn't come to listen to nonsense, and interrupted Tony impatiently. "Now is not the time to say this. I want to ask you how to pay it back now." Tony remembered his business when he came here today. "Don't worry, Saka has no problems now, and he should wake up later." After Tony finished saying this, his eyes fell on the screen in front of him again, and he was amazed at this Saka. If it weren't for the fact that Hulk wasn't there now, Tony would have wanted to share it with him. He believed that the Hulk would definitely react the same as his, and after watching it for a while, Tony had a thought in his mind. Looking at Levi's, who was frowning at the computer next to him, Vice, I have a request. What do you want to say? To put it bluntly, don't look at me like that. Levi's was numb by Tony's scalp, and he was very unaccustomed to such eyes. It's just if you can borrow your Saka to give me research, you can rest assured that I will definitely pay you back a complete one after it is over. You better wait for Saka to wake up and ask her yourself. I don't know about this. Levi definitely knew what Tony was thinking and didn't agree to it. Chapter 270 Saka, who got the salary function. Tony was also very helpless when he heard this. Okay, then I'll wait for her to wake up. Levi's ignored his current lost look, his eyes watching the dynamics on the screen. After a while, all the data stabilized, and Levi's knew it was over. Lu Heng walked to Saka's side and stood on the side to look at Saka. The robot Suxing was still very fast, and Saka soon woke up and opened his eyes to look at Levi's. The host. I came back and seemed to have gotten a little bit of other calendars. Levi's was relieved to see that Saka still knew him, and he thought it would really be like it was written in the novel. He was ready to destroy, and if it wasn't for Sakami, Levi would destroy it without hesitation. Saka got up from the platform and moved his limbs to make sure there was nothing wrong before looking at Levi's. Director, I can control Tony's machine army, as well as his bank password. Saka knows it. If the master needs it, he can give it to you now. Saka now looks like a child who wants to praise his relatives, telling Levi's all his newfound abilities. Levi's was a little crying and laughing when he heard this, and it didn't come to Saka to wake up and give him such a big surprise. Okay, I know, Saka is very powerful, but Tony is not so happy, and the functions he set for Ultron are now all leaked by Sakami. This thing was so unpleasant that Tony coughed twice and interrupted the chat. Are you two ignoring my presence? You are still talking at the door in front of the parties. Tony is very unhappy now. It's just too bad. Saka glanced at Tony without speaking, and looked at Levi's. Levi knew about this. Tony's heart must be uncomfortable, and changed the subject to divert his attention. Sakago, JARVIS are finding the picture. Levi's knew that JARVIS had been attacked by Ultron as he fled, so Tony was now in a situation where he lost his wife and broke back. Saka heard Levi's words and began to search, and finally found a backup of JARVIS in one place. Saka uploaded this backup to Tony's phone. Okay master, I have found and uploaded it to Tony's phone. Hearing this, Tony took out his phone and turned on the screen. JARVIS, who was replied to the data, was very happy to see Tony again. It's really happy, it's nice to see you again. Tony is also very happy to see JARVIS again. It's great, old man, I'm very happy to see you again. As he spoke, his eyes couldn't help but turn a little red. JARVIS has been with him for a long time and helped him deal with many things. During this time without JARVIS, Tony always felt like something was missing in his life. It's amazing to hear JARVIS electronically again, and Tony has found a small part of himself. JARVIS analyzed Tony's current mood and spoke in a very relaxed tone. Am I not coming back? Don't be sad. I'm not sad, you're mistaken. It was a bit humiliating to shed tears in front of so many people, so Tony didn't admit it. Tony hadn't forgotten what he was thinking about now, and looked at Sakami. Saka was a little puzzled by Tony's enthusiastic eyes, and blinked his mechanical eyes in confusion. Tony's eyes became even hotter when he saw Saka making such a complicated expression, and Levi's knew what Tony was thinking when he saw Tony like this. But he didn't say anything about this matter. Levi respected Saka's choice, and it was better for her to decide this matter herself. Mr. Tony, why are you looking at me like this? Is there anything you want to say to me? Yes, here's a little request. Can you give me a copy of your data? Tony doesn't hide it now, and speaks directly to the castle lord. No, Mr. Tony, don't you understand how important core data is to a robot? As soon as Saka heard this, he immediately refused. This kind of thing is like loosening his own handle to someone else's hand. Saka will not do this kind of thing, and even if he does, it will only be Levi alone who can make Saka willingly expose his weaknesses. Tony was already prepared in his heart, and now he was not sad to be rejected. After all, this matter has been familiar with Tony, who is used to being rejected by these two masters and servants. Ask for flowers. In that case, then forget it, I'll go back first. Tony is now in a hurry to go back and do a good check on JARVIS, hoping that JARVIS has not been irreversibly damaged. Okay. Goodbye Tony. Levi said goodbye to Tony cheerfully, and Saka waved his hand and stood behind Levi's. After Tony disappeared, Sakami spoke. Master, my weakness is in me, and if I do anything unforgivable at that time, you can let me die just by attacking me here. This was said by Saka to Levi's ear, and only Levi heard it. I know, if you do something I can't forgive in the future, I will definitely not be soft. Levi's was still very clear about this matter, and there was no reaction to this statement. Okay, let's go back first. Clarisse must have been waiting for me at home for a long time. Levi said and moved his wrist to walk out, and as he passed the researchers, Levi spoke. "Thank you very much this time. When the time comes, I will treat you. You can play casually." They did help a little, and Levi's didn't know about it. Since it was Mr. Vice who said so, we will definitely not be polite. Everyone burst into laughter, and Levi walked out the door in this relaxed atmosphere. Walking out the door, Levi seemed to think of a Scarlet Red Witch. Saka, find out where the Quicksilver brothers and sisters are. Give me the location. When Saka heard the order, he quickly called up the relevant information. "Master, they are here now." A projection of the building appeared on Saka's hand, and there were two anxious expressions on it. "Master, do you need Saka to get these two back?" Levi shook his head. "We're not in a hurry about this now. Let's slow down. Now is not the time to subdue a person. Definitely is to reach out when they need help the most. When there is only one way to go, they have no choice." Saka put away the image in his hand when he heard this. Although he didn't know what Levi's thought, he didn't want to ask more. Chapter 271. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver escaped from the battlefield, and the two ran for a while to find that no one caught up. The two found a safe place to hide, with Scarlet Witch sitting inside and Quicksilver sitting in a chair. Neither spoke, looking out the window where they were back. Finally, Quicksilver broke the silence. "Wonder, what do we do now?" Scarlet Witch is also thinking about this, and now the two of them must be wanted. As Ultron's accomplices, it will definitely not be good to be caught in them. Both of them are at a loss now, and who knows that Ultron will not last half an hour in Levi's hands. It is a face-to-face effort, and it has become a broken copper and iron on the ground. Now that technology is so advanced, how long will they hide in the river? 577 and the two were racking their brains to find a countermeasure, when they saw the bounty order about the two of them posted on TV. Scarlet Witch knew that it would never be so simple, and as she thought about it, Levi's face kept popping up in her mind. Finally, Scarlet Witch looked at Quicksilver beside him as if he was sure of something. "Let's go to Academy X and find Levi's." Quicksilver was very incomprehensible when he heard her words. Didn't we just escape from his hands? Why throw yourself into the net now? He didn't understand why Scarlet Witch was doing this, how to catch up with things that were too late to hide. "Oh, big brother, do you listen to me explain to you? You will decide after listening." Scarlet Witch explains all the reasons why he did it, explaining it from all sides. Just borrowing Levi's to shake off the current predicament. But isn't he a fool to believe what we say? I was still a little shocked by Quicksilver's ability to Levi's, and I was by no means in favor of this temporary one. I know it's not easy, but big brother, you need to know what will happen if we are caught by other forces. Have you ever thought about it? Quicksilver knew that his sister was right, and that Levi's was the best option for now. Despite some reluctance, Quicksilver reluctantly agreed with his sister. "Okay, I know, let's go now." Quicksilver held out his hand to Scarlet Witch, and Scarlet Witch saw that his big brother had said yes and handed it to Quicksilver. "We'll go to Academy X now, negotiate with Levi's, and if something goes wrong, we'll leave immediately." Quicksilver didn't react when he heard this, just silently carrying the Red Witch. X Academy is very easy to find, no need to inquire at all. Saka has been monitoring the movements of these two people, and when he saw the two moving, he immediately reported it to Levi's. "Master Quicksilver, the brother and sister began to move, and the two were coming towards the academy." Levi's nodded when he heard this, indicating that he understood. "Don't stop them, just let them in." Saka nodded and gave Quicksilver's siblings permission to temporarily open the pass. The Quicksilver siblings carefully came in from the outside and found that there were no obstacles along the way. Scarlet Witch knew at once that this must be Levi's order, and it seems that Levi's has been paying attention to them. After figuring it out, Scarlet Witch stopped Quicksilver. "Big brother, don't need to hide, let's go straight in." The Quicksilver didn't know what was going on, and did as his sister said. The two entered the academy smoothly, and no one stopped them. After entering the door, they were shocked by the magnificent school in front of them, and they did not expect that the current college was built with such grandeur. Unlike what he had imagined. The two also saw that it was Mutant. Inside they also saw familiar faces. They had seen them before, and it was obvious that they were very happy here. The two did not speak and walked inside in silence, silently paying attention to the people in this school. When they passed by the training room, they heard someone chatting, and what they said also made the two very shocked. After listening, they had a deeper understanding of the academy and completely overturned their previous prejudices. By the time the two of them arrived at the office, Levi's had been waiting here for a while. "I wasn't surprised to see the two of them enter the door. You guys are here, what do you want to tell me?" Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver sat across from Levi, but their postures were still defensive. As long as Levi's showed something unusual, they would jump away without hesitation. Levi's didn't care much about the guards of these two people and naturally talked to them. "Let's not play dumb riddles, you know, let's get to the point." Scarlet Witch knew that Levi's had known why they were here, and he didn't want to talk to him about something unrelated. "Well, you want us to protect you, right? What can you bring to our college? Why should we make this effort if there is no value?" Levi's didn't talk nonsense, and spread out these things. After all, This matter is still his side in the position of the Lord. During the time you protect us, you can order us to do things for you. Definitely these things are within our ability. Scarlet Witch's confidence is her unique ability, which has not been seen in anyone else now. Levi's does feel that Scarlet Witch's ability is very special, but what he wants is not a hidden danger that is always against him. What he wanted was someone who was 100% oriented towards the school, and Levi's really didn't like it with two hearts. I'm sorry, I think the conditions you gave are not very satisfied. You go find other forces. 3.1 Scarlet Witch looked at Levi in surprise when he heard this, and did not expect him to simply refuse. Quicksilver couldn't sit still when he saw this scene on the side, and angrily got up and pulled up his sister beside him. Let's go now. If we are not accepted here, there must be other places that accept us. Quicksilver is a grumpy man who can't bear to look down on this at all. Levi's didn't stop the two, just watch them get out of here. Scarlet Witch was dragged out the door by Quicksilver, and in the middle of the walk, Scarlet Witch shook off his hand. You calm down first. Now we don't have a better choice, big brother. Although this is what he said, Quicksilver's heart is still very unconvinced, and he ignores Scarlet Witch's words. Chapter 272 Enrollment. Okay, big brother, now is not the time to be childish, let's go back. Scarlet Witch is still very clear about this matter, even if it is seen clearly, it is not a thing. After all, Levi's is better than them, isn't he? Levi's has this ability. After the impulse, Quicksilver also sobered up, but he just didn't want to hear Levi's disparaging words now, not to look at Scarlet Witch standing in front of him. I'm not going in, you go in. Scarlet Witch, too, got used to his big brother like this, and without saying anything, re-entered Levi's office. Levi's was looking at the documents in his hand and didn't look up. You're back? Is there anything else you want to say? Yes, you can't accept our previous conditions, so what kind of conditions do you accept? Hearing this, Levi put down the document in his hand and looked at Scarlet Witch. Levi's eyes were not comfortable looking at him like this, as if he were a cargo to be evaluated. I don't have to consciously follow and look at myself, as if there is nothing wrong with it. Scarlet Witch suddenly looked at Levi in shock as if he remembered something. Levi's also knows what Scarlet Witch's eyes mean. Don't worry, I don't like to force people. Scarlet Witch thought for a moment, although there are a lot of peach news about Levi's, but it seems that a lot of it is your will. Thinking of this, Scarlet Witch was relieved a lot, and his eyes were firmly fixed on Levi's. It's very simple, it's loyalty. I don't need people with two hearts, and definitely I don't need a puppet. Levi's could have controlled these two people through his ability if he wanted to, but Levi didn't. As if he didn't understand what Levi's meant, Scarlet Witch looked at Levi in confusion. But Levi's didn't explain, but called Saka in. Saka, you take them to the school. Scarlet Witch had a bunch of questions in his mind, but Levi's clearly didn't want to say it. Scarlet Witch didn't ask. Anyway, she achieved her goal, and the rest of the matter was not to worry. Quicksilver greeted her as he walked out the door, first examining her. After making sure that he saw some wound, he looked at Saka on the side. Wonder, who is this? Hello too, let me introduce myself. I am Mr. Vice's assistant and butler. My name is Sakami. Now the two of you come with me. After Saka finished speaking, he walked in front to lead the way for the two. Quicksilver knew nothing about all this, and looked at his sister suspiciously. What's going on now? Scarlet Witch shook his head, didn't answer, and pulled his big brother to keep up with Wonder. Let's deal with the side of the matter first, and then talk about the rest. Quicksilver also knew what his sister meant, and did not ask about it again. Saka took the two of them to complete the admission. Everything was arranged, and there were two people left in the room. This is the room assigned to the two of them by the school, very luxurious, and now X Academy is getting better and better, and the equipment on the definitely hardware is also upgraded. Now the places where students live are suites, with a user-friendly allocation. Scarlet Witch looked around and was very satisfied with the place. When she looked at this place slowly, Quicksilver, who was standing on the side, was about to explode a bunch of questions in her heart. But he didn't ask, and could only look at Scarlet Witch with his eyes. After looking at it enough, Scarlet Witch got down to business. I know what Big Brother wants to ask, but I don't understand what Levi's thinks. She couldn't figure out what Levi's was thinking, so she couldn't answer Quicksilver's question. Well, in short, isn't our purpose accomplished? Now let's live in peace for a while and take a step by step. Scarlet Witch was very relaxed at this time, as if he had lifted a burden. Quicksilver rarely saw his sister so relaxed, stopped talking, and found a sofa to do it. Analyzing this matter myself, the more I thought about it, the more I felt that my sister had agreed to some excessive request. I want to ask, but I don't know where to ask. After dealing with this time, Saka returned to Levi's, and Levi's saw her come back and asked casually, "Is everything done?" The hosts have all been taken care of, and both of them have arranged accommodation. After Saka finished speaking, he kept looking at Levi's, waiting for Levi to speak. Levi's looked at Saka's curious eyes and knew what problem Saka wanted to know, and felt a little funny. Saka wanted to know everything. Is there something you don't understand about this, say Kami? If so, just ask. Master, I don't understand the reason why you left them. Their ability is not very strong. Maybe that girl is a little more special, but the other is very ordinary. These two people can find a lot of people in our school. Why are you making trouble for yourself? These are all analyzed by S.H.I.E.L.D based on the information he knows, and S.H.I.E.L.D believes that his analysis will not be wrong. Levi laughed when he heard this. Things don't have to be the same as the data says. That girl may be a hidden level 5 mutant. I'm just curious about how she will turn on. Levi's purpose is here, otherwise, these two really don't have a value of 250. But how did the owner see that the girl is a level 5 mutant? I can't lie to people when I see this data, right? Lee did not answer this question with a meaningful smile. Well, definitely is my secret. You don't need to know. S.H.I.E.L.D still wanted to ask, but knew that there would be no answer if he asked. The human mind is really hard to guess. It seems that I still have to study hard. S.H.I.E.L.D muttered to himself, and Levi's just laughed when he heard her. Okay, now that the matter is settled, let's go back first. After speaking, the Levi's had already disappeared in place, and S.H.I.E.L.D still had nothing to say. Looking at the empty room, muttering to himself, Master, your affairs have not been dealt with yet, and there are still several urgent documents for you to see. But at this time, Levi had disappeared in place, and could only sigh helplessly. Resignedly, he took this document and went back to Levi's. These things are in a hurry, and they can't be delayed any longer. Levi's went back to his room to give a sigh of relief. Who knew that the last time he returned to the office, he was given a pile of documents by Saka, which took a long time to process. It's so hard to get to work, and Levi's doesn't want to deal with papers. Chapter 273 Scarlet Witch and Yuriko. After settling in, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver began their life at the academy, which was no different from normal classes. It's just that the classes here are different from ordinary courses, but both of them are very relaxed in such an atmosphere. Quicksilver was still faintly uneasy in her heart, but when she looked at her sister, she found that she was very comfortable in it. The longer they stay in this academy, the more they like it. There is no need to think about the outside strife or the pain of the past. Every day is a simple class. There is no intrigue. This is really another paradise. They also meet Levi's apprentice, Yuriko. The two accidentally saw what they looked like during training, and they were excellent in all aspects, although not as perverted as Levi's. But she is still a rare genius, and she must not be despised because of her thin appearance, otherwise she will suffer fiercely. Yuriko had heard that the two of them were recruited by Levist, and she was only curious. Yuriko was not interested in meeting each other, and the two of them didn't seem to be anything special. Scarlet Witch was very interested in the girl and took the initiative to step forward and talk to Yuriko. Hey, hello, I heard you're Mr. Vice's student. Although Yuriko is not good at communicating with people, she still has basic politeness. Hello, yes. Do you have anything to do with me? Scarlet Witch shook his head. There's nothing, I just want to get to know you. My name is Wanda. Although Yuriko didn't know why she wanted to know herself, she nodded out of politeness. Hello, my name is Yuriko. Other than that, Yuriko didn't say a word, looking at Scarlet Witch with big eyes, as if asking her about something. Scarlet Witch knew that being too enthusiastic would make people suspicious. Since such a household, we also know each other, I still have some things, so I will leave first. Yuriko nodded, indicating that she knew about it, and stood in place watching Scarlet Witch leave. Scarlet Witch's figure disappeared behind the door, and Yuriko stared at her back thoughtfully. Levi quietly appeared behind Yuriko, and was a little curious to see her staring at the door in a daze. Reaching out and touching Yuriko's head, Yuriko, who was taken aback, reflexively wanted to attack when she heard Levi's voice. Yuriko, what are you standing here looking at? So fascinated? Yuriko controlled the hand she wanted to attack in time, and looked back at Levi with some disgust. Vice big brother, you didn't say anything about how you appeared. It almost scared me just now. Yuriko also thought it was a stranger. She didn't like strangers approaching her very much, and when someone approached, she wanted to reflexively attack back. But Levi's is different, but it is still very scary to appear suddenly. Levi's looked at Yuriko's angry face and knew that he was really angry, and he also knew that it was really scary for him to appear suddenly sometimes. Good, good, this time it's my fault. I apologize to you. Yuriko was reluctantly satisfied. Well, I forgive you if I have a large number of adults. Is there anything wrong with Vice Big Brother looking for me today? Levi's was a little crying and laughing when he heard this, and flicked Yuriko's head. If the people are small, how old are they? And there are a lot of adults. Yuriko covered her forehead, a little unconvinced. I'm an adult. No one in the school can beat me now. Am I not an adult? Oh, yes, it's all showing off in front of me now, right? Let's try. I'm standing in place, using only one ability, to see if you can touch the corners of my clothes. Levi raised his eyebrows when he saw Yuriko's proud look, not expecting Yuriko to improve so quickly in this short period of time. Yuriko was a little eager to try when she heard this. She hadn't found an opponent for a long time, and now she had such a good opportunity as Levi's. Yuriko definitely agreed without thinking. Okay. Do you want to start now? Yes, start now. Before Levi could finish saying this, Yuriko had already attacked. Lu Heng did not use the ability to move and space, but used the same ability as Yuriko, standing in place and not moving. Yuriko's figure can't enter at a distance of about half an inch from him, and no matter how hard Yuriko tries, the distance at this point is very good and difficult to cross. Levi stood in place and smiled at Yuri's hard work, and her face turned red, and Yuriko saw that the strong attack could not work, and began to switch strategies. Began to be constantly at Levi's side to test for weaknesses and find a way to crack them. In the end, Yuriko began to pant but still couldn't find a way. Levi stood in the middle a little bored and yawned. Yuriko, have you found a way? Now Yuriko is like a sticky eggplant, knowing that she was still too complacent before, and now in front of Levi's. Her little ability is simply not enough. Vice big brother, I throw in the towel. Yuriko admits her failure in frustration, and Levi takes back her ability and walks to Yuriko's side. Touched Yuriko's head. Okay, now go to my place. Clarisse has prepared a lot of delicious food, just wait for me to go back to the door. Hearing that Yuriko was eating was less sad and happy. Really? The dessert prepared by Sister Lissai is delicious, let's go now. Yuriko was very expectant, and Levi answered. Take Yuriko and slowly walk to her home, observing the current students along the way. Everyone is in good shape, and Levi's is quite satisfied with the current development. Kian Lee's. When Levi's returned home, he enjoyed a big hug. Then Clarisse pulled them towards the restaurant. Dangton. This is what Sakae and I have prepared for you, isn't it? Sakae just brought a dish to the table after the rain, and he was very happy to see Levi return. Master, everything is ready, you can enjoy the meal now. Levi nodded and pressed Clarisse to the front of the meal. Definitely wants to eat for our heroes first, and I'll take Yuriko to wash my hands and come back soon. Levi glanced at Yuriko after speaking, and Yuriko silently followed Levi's footsteps. Clarisse looked at Levi's back from behind, her eyes full of happiness. After washing his hands, Levi sat down at the table and scanned the dishes on the table. It's all to their liking, and Levi's knows they must have done it well. Chapter 274. Quicksilver finds the door. When Scarlet Witch was doing it, Quicksilver saw Scarlet Witch come out and started asking, "Why are you talking to that girl? Don't you know her relationship with Levi's?" "I know, but it's not important." Scarlet Witch knew what Quicksilver meant, but she had her own considerations, and Scarlet Witch didn't want to talk to Quicksilver. In that case, okay. Quicksilver felt the gap between the two, and now the Red Witch wouldn't talk to him about anything. I don't know when Scarlet Witch became what it is. Quicksilver was no longer expecting an answer from Scarlet Witch, and now he plans to find out for himself. Scarlet Witch was immersed in his own world and didn't notice the changes in Quicksilver. Quicksilver glanced at Scarlet Witch and walked out the door. His goal was to find Levi's. Quicksilver had already heard about Levi's residence and stood at Levi's door. Levi's, who was eating with Yuriko, received a reminder from Sakami. "Master, someone is waiting outside the door. Do you want to meet?" Sakamito said as he released the image of the doorway, and Levi's recognized the person standing in the doorway at a glance. "Is he?" "You let him go to the living room and wait for me." Although Levi's did not know the purpose of his visit, he planned to meet him. Saka's order was arranged, and Levi finished the last bit of the bowl and looked at Clarisse. "I'll go busy for a while, and I'll be back later." Clarisse nodded in understanding. Levi kissed Clarisse's cheek as she left, and Clarisse, who was a little embarrassed by Levi's action, pushed Levi's. "Yuriko is still here, what are you doing?" Yuriko didn't lift her head, as if she didn't see the movements of the two. As soon as Levi's entered the living room, Quicksilver looked at him. "Did you come to me today about something?" Ignoring his burning gaze, Levi sat down on the other side of the couch and looked at Quicksilver. "I want to ask you what kind of ecstasy soup you gave my sister. She doesn't look like herself now." Levi's felt a little baffled by this. He didn't do anything. How could there be this inexplicable accusation? "I don't understand your words. I've never done anything to your sister." Levi Stein is frank. He hasn't done this, definitely not. Back, weak-hearted. Quicksilver didn't believe Levi's. "Then my sister has become strange since the last time she saw you, not because of who else you can have? Why don't you ask your sister directly about this?" "I'm afraid you won't get the answer you want." 1 inch. Levi's felt that he was a little strange, questioned himself for no reason, and said strange things for no reason. Levi's rouse good temper ended here, and his face was a little unhappy. "If you say these inexplicable and wonderful words, I forgive me for not accompanying you." Levi stood up when he finished this sentence and spoke to Sakae behind him as he walked. "Sakago, send off." Saka's reaction was very fast, and he immediately stepped forward to stop Quicksilver, who was trying to catch up with Levi's. "Sir, stay behind, you are not welcome here now." Quicksilver flashed behind Sakae using his super ability, trying to catch up with Levi to make it clear. Sakae's reaction was not slow, and the next second he appeared in front of Quicksilver. "Sir, did you hear what I said? Otherwise, don't blame us for doing it." 11. There was no emotional fluctuation in Saka's words, but the threatening taste in his words was very heavy. I just wanted to know something. Why didn't he answer me? It must be his weakness. Levi's avoidance was a weakness in Quicksilver's eyes, and it also confirmed the guess in his heart. The most unpopular thing for Saka is that others have framed Levi's, and now he does not maintain a semblance of tranquility towards Quicksilver. Saka raised his hand, and a chain shot out of his arm, binding Quicksilver. Quicksilver tried to break free, but the chains on his body didn't move. Quicksilver looked at Saka in shock. What did you do to me? Hurry up and let go of me. Saka moved his wrist and walked towards Quicksilver. What am I doing to you? I'll teach you to be a good person. After speaking, Saka punched Quicksilver, and the strength of his punch did not converge, and blood immediately flowed from the corner of Quicksilver's mouth. Quicksilver controlled the force, grasping a force that hurt but did not make Quicksilver faint in pain. Quicksilver was given a good lesson. And then Quicksilver was given away in a package. Quicksilver's character, who was casually thrown on the ground like garbage, hurts everywhere on his body, and there is no good meat. Scarlet Witch, who heard the news, saw Quicksilver on the ground, his pupils shook, and he threw himself at Quicksilver's side. Big brother, how are you? Scarlet Witch glared viciously at Sakami, who was standing on the stairs. Why did you attack my big brother? I'm going to see Levi's. You should ask what big brother did. If it weren't for our master's kindness, what you saw would be your brother's corpse. After speaking, Saka turned his head and entered the room and locked the door behind him. He decided that the two siblings would never appear in front of Levi's after that. Scarlet Witch looked at Quicksilver with doubts in his eyes. I didn't ask now. I didn't plan to say it now. I'm going to wait until the dorm room to ask Quicksilver, and the priority now is to see a doctor. I investigated this matter, and if it were for you, I would not plan to end this matter just like this. After Scarlet Witch let out the harsh words, he left the hospital with Quicksilver. Saka counted his strength, and this wound was a little scary and painful, and there was no problem with the rest. Saka was quite happy about the departure of the two, clapped his hand and turned his head into the house. Levi's sat back in front of the restaurant and saw Saka come back and asked, "Back? Is it settled?" Saka was in a good mood. "Master, everything has been settled, and I have sent him away well." Levi's felt that Saka seemed to have a deep meaning when he said good, but it was not an important matter. Levi's did not take this matter to heart and nodded lightly. "Okay, thank you Sakami." "You're welcome master, this is all I should do." After Saka finished answering, he went into the kitchen and sorted out the contents. Scarlet Witch took Quicksilver to the hospital, where the doctor checked it out and nothing was wrong. Scarlet Witch breathed a sigh of relief at this conclusion and looked at Quicksilver who was bandaging. "Big brother, don't you explain this to me properly?" Chapter 275 Brother and Sister Misunderstanding solved. Faced with his sister's questioning, Quicksilver immediately became angry. "I don't have to explain anything to you, do I? Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" Scarlet Witch was asked inexplicably. "What do I have to say to you? What you see is what I do, and I don't hide anything from you." Scarlet Witch didn't know how Quicksilver could have asked that and was so prejudiced against her. "What dissatisfaction have I had?" "Just say it if you have something to say." "But big brother, do you know how impulsive you are to go to Levi's right now? If Levi's had been unreasonable, you would still be here yelling at me. You're a corpse now, you know." "I don't care what I'm going to do." Quicksilver doesn't listen to Scarlet Witch at all right now, and he's very grumpy. Scarlet Witch saw that Quicksilver was speechless, turned around and walked out of the room. "Whatever you want." When Scarlet Witch walked out of the room, it was completely silent, leaving Quicksilver alone. Sitting on the hospital bed for a while, Quicksilver also calmed down, feeling that what he had just said was very excessive. But now that Scarlet Witch is gone, Quicksilver can't find anyone to apologize. Scarlet Witch walked out of the hospital and stood in the doorway thinking for a while, feeling that it was indeed his big brother who was wrong. She had also threatened Saka before, and Scarlet Witch was thinking about whether to apologize. After all, they are still under Levi's, and if Levi's wants to target them, their life will not be easy. After thinking about it for a while, Scarlet Witch decided to go to Levi to apologize, so that Levi would not care. After Levi's finished eating, he took Clarissa and they planned to go to the beach, and now it was a good time to go to the beach. Yuriko watched Saka sort out her travels, and after packing up, Levi set off with them. Now it is a matter of minutes to the beach, and the Sakagoto has already arranged the hotel in advance. They could have a place to stay, and Scarlet Witch at Levi's house was empty. Saka detected it at the hotel and told Levi about it. "Master, Wanda is at the door and should want to see you." Levi's thought of Quicksilver before and didn't want to see the two now. Refused, saying that I was not at home. Saka nodded, sent a message to Wanda that they were not home, and then ignored Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch didn't think about how long he had been away and went off. After lingering in the doorway and seeing that there was indeed no one in the house, Scarlet Witch went back. By this time Quicksilver had returned to his dormitory, waiting in the living room for Scarlet Witch to return. Quicksilver, who heard the sound of the door opening, looked towards the door and saw Scarlet Witch push the door in. "Wanda, You're back? I apologize for what I did before. I was really angry before. Quicksilver admitted his mistake very quickly and changed his attitude at once. Scarlet Witch saw her softened like this, and she wasn't really angry with Quicksilver. I can forgive you, but I need to at least know why you're like this. The two chatted calmly, and Quicksilver did not hide it, telling Scarlet Witch all his reasons. So you think I'm brainwashed by Levi's big brother? What are your strange ideas? Scarlet Witch himself was in disbelief, and he couldn't find the right words to describe it for a long time. It was simply outrageous, and the two completely calmed down after talking to each other. I think the person you should apologize the most now is not me, it's Levi's. Who knew that when Quicksilver heard Levi's name, the expression on his face changed, and he turned away from looking at Scarlet Witch. I'm not going to apologize. His body still hurts, and Quicksilver doesn't want to see Levi's. When Scarlet Witch saw his big brother like this, he knew that he was stubborn like a donkey now, and he would definitely not go. Okay then I'll go by myself. If something happens to me, you can just escape, Scarlet Witch said, and was about to open the door and walk out. Quicksilver reacted and stopped Scarlet Witch. Wait, I know, I'll go in 2 days. Hearing Scarlet Witch's words, Quicksilver was anxious. You know that he has just this one sister, and definitely does not want her to have an accident. Zero asked the flowers. Satisfied with the answer she wanted, Scarlet Witch released her hand holding the doorknob. Then say okay, you can't back down then. Quicksilver nodded, Scarlet Witch smiled, and the relationship was back to before. Levi's bee is surfing on the beach, and his posture has completed one difficult and beautiful movement after another. This makes the people on the shore very enjoyable to watch, and Levi himself is very enjoyable. This activity surpasses golf here in Levi's, and surfing is much more exciting and gives Levi's a sense of conquering nature. After exercising, Levi walked over to Clarice and Yuriko, who were resting under an umbrella, and now both of them are wearing swimsuits. 0. Yuriko is an ordinary conjoined one and looks cute. Clarice is wearing a suit with polka dots on it, which is also very eye-catching. Levi's walked down the chair next to the two and sat down. Seeing that both of them were lying safely, he felt a little bad in his heart. Throwing all the water on her body onto the two of them made Clarice scream at once. Vice, what are you doing? Why don't you two go swimming, just lying here? Clarice blushed a little when she heard Levi's words. I won't. I haven't had time to learn to swim yet. Yuriko didn't touch this piece either, but she still watched others swim with relish. It's okay, I'll buy you a life buoy. You guys hurry up and play in the water. Levi's didn't mind, so the two of them must get into the water and went nearby to prepare swimming rings for them. Yuriko was a little eager to see it, but Clarice was still a little scared. Standing, Levi's reaching hand carefully pulled his arm step by step and carefully walked a little deeper. You two be careful, hold me, don't get overwhelmed. Clarice nodded. Okay, we'll be careful. Then I walked inside step by step, carefully testing myself to wait for me. Levi stood on the side and watched the two, afraid that something would happen to them. Seeing that they were both relatively comfortable, Levi swam up near the two of them. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me. Link is in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.